start recording. Alright, so anyway, hello everybody, welcome to the stream of Atlanta Nights. We are reading some more of this absolutely intentionally badly written novel that was made in order to expose PublishAmerica as a shitty vanity publisher that actually thought that this was gonna be worth publishing and everything for some unknown reason, so yeah. All in all, definitely the good stuff, so alright. We are now at chapter 12. We just ended up having a merger between a shipping and a software company, and now they had wild sex. So here we go, chapter 12. Bruce Lucent limped out onto the patio in the hot light of the late afternoon sun, carrying a tray where a mound of freshly cropped up hamburger gleamed red and wet, like a pile of bloody spaghetti, and put the tray down on the gleaming, okay, yeah, let's just use the word gleaming in every line. Glass patio table with its matching set of 6 wrought-up high-end chairs, where Penelope Urbain sat with her long legs as graceful as the frond of a willow tree crossed in a provocative pose that made him think about last night and the passion they'd shared hour after hour till the turgid light of dawn folded down over Atlanta like the petals of a bloody rose, and they were both too exhausted to move another muscle. That was a fucking train wreck of a phrase. I think that was like a metaphor inception that we had here. It was just like this, like this, like this, and like this. Maybe he thought, as they sank into sleep, like 2 swimmers would just want to race across the English Channel. Just maybe things were going to work out after all. Maybe they could get it together at last. Seeing her now, as beautiful and fresh as a sunny morning in May.
It looks like you've just
Oh, thank you, Cosmic Afro.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much for the sub. Yep. Yep, I am definitely good at growing channels.
This is not what I pictured you would be doing a year ago for my first year sub to you, psych. I am entertained and disturbed, all at once. 1 year, hell yeah.
Yeah. So, as beautiful as fresh as a sunny morning in May, even though it was August, his heart skipped a bit. Hey, babe, Bruce offered. Wanna grill some hamburgers? The happy expression fell off of Penelope Urbain's finely featured visage. She pressed her slender hand to her moist red lips and shook her lustrous red hair back over her shoulder, bouncing like the vibrant mane of a true-bred horse. Is that meat? She gasped, her eyes, the color of a warm blue sky in springtime, falling onto the tray. Red meat? Yeah, babes, Bruce affirmed proudly. Bona fide 100% sirloin! Penelope fluttered, her cornflower blue eyes still stuck to the tray. It's really grisly! Only thought you like hamburgers! Bruce wanted to know, crestfallen. That beef is chock full of protein! Bruce grinned contagiously. And we could both use some protein after last night, if you know what I mean. But don't you remember, Bruce? Penelope reproached. Reproach. Wait, is that an actual word? I gotta know. Her sapphire orbs now grasping his. I'm a vegetarian! Bruce's lungs ricocheted with shock, causing him to let out a gasp, and remorse swept over him in a stunning tide. Darn, he explained to himself. How could I forget that? Wow, babe! Bruce stumbled. I'm really sorry. I guess I should have picked up a carrot or something while I was at the store. Wait. Yeah, 1 carrot, yep.
A singular carrot, don't you know?
Yeah, vegetarians, they just don't eat that much, you see.
I just like, well, I like my carrot, like I like my steaks. Medium rare.
And you see, the carrots are really rare. I only got one of them. It's okay, honey. Penelope tried to smile forgivingly, but he could see the betrayal in her limpid azure eye, exactly like she'd said it out loud. I'm not really all that hungry. I'll just watch while you and Isadora eat. He is coming, isn't he? He's en right now. En right? Again, is that a word? Good. I was hoping you would. She commentated softly. Bruce loosened, put the tray down on the table. He began to shape the hamburger patties, shaping the meat into round circular shape with his strong hands. You don't shape hamburger patties in circular shapes with your hand.
I mean, people do that.
Well, I guess, but they're not gonna be circular, I can already tell you.
You know how rolling a ball works? It's like a snowball, like you just push it.
I mean, generally, whenever I'd see patties being done, they will just use these little things that just puts them into a circle for you and everything. All right.
Like that slight hamburger slider maker as advertised by Billy Mays.
Yeah, I guess. Usually, he carries the hamburger like a lover. Loving the way the red soft meat squish yieldingly between his hands, and the sensuous sucking sounds it made when he pulled his hands away once he got the round shapes just the way he wanted them. Not too thick and not too thin. Not too wide and not too small, but just right, like the Three Bears, except it was hamburger and not porridge. He was a artiste with hamburger. Everyone said so.
Sensuous sucking sounds he used with it. What is he making? Like making hamburger patties with his hand while like making those fart noises you make with your hands or something?
Yeah. But today,
I'll send you.
but today, it wasn't good like usual. The way Penelope's exquisite feature had fallen when her eye swooped down onto the meat had taken roots inside his brain, like the tentacles of a poisonous black spider. But, wait, a spider doesn't have tentacles. I know that there is a separate term for that. I let her down again, he berated himself savagely. I betrayed her. Again. Why didn't I remember that she's a vegetarian? He ruminated to himself worriedly. This must be the 4th time I've forgotten. Or is it the 5th? But I'm forgetting a lot of things. His thought veered off on a tangent. So many things I can't remember since my accident. Like making hamburgers with my mother. So, change of formatting. Alright, now let's go to simple line. Single line spacing. He remembered a lot about his mother. Too much, in fact. The alcohol binges, the beatings, the way she'd sit in front of the TV smoking crack and watching infomercial. I mean, if I have crack smokers, tell me this is exactly what you do. The time the cops had to come to the house where she'd set the dog on fire? What? He loved that dog. Fluffy, his name had been. And there were times where he'd been sure that he was his only friend. The time she went into his closet and cut up all his clothes. The time she stole the money he'd save up from his crappy evening job at the roller rink and spent it all on nail extension. The way her fat legs bulge inside her spandex stirrup pants. So different from Penelope's slender front-like limbs. The way she'd cut him down all the time, laughing at him, telling him he'd never amount to anything, never get anywhere in the world. Well, Ma, you aren't laughing now, he asserted to himself. I'm not a pimply wimp anymore. I'm a stud, a rich businessman, with a fabulous house and a voluminous red-headed girlfriend and a lot of friends. How do you like them hamburgers? He'd always wanted to shout those words into her fat face, her ugly fat hateful face with its garish cake on makeup and glittery paste on eyelashes. But she died before any of the good stuff happened, and he never got into yell into her fat face like he wanted. She choked to death on a cocktail frank while watching infomercial. He'd found her the next morning, stiff as beef jerky. I remember that, Stout continued, squashing the red meat between his fingers like he was squashing his mother's throat. Okay, did you kill your mom? Just tell it soonish. I remember it like it was yesterday, but not the hamburgers. I don't remember the hamburgers. Why? Why?
Sweetie, is your okay?
What? Is your okay? Came Penelope Urbain's soft voice, sliding into his tortured thought, like a cool shaft of evening rain into the fiery heart of hell.
You look like you're trying to crush it or something,
she exclaimed worriedly. Bruce loosened gusted aside that siphoned up from the bottom of his heart and hoisted his thought up to the black sting bug bite shaft of memory. Mom was dead. She never laughed at him again. That part of his life was over. He didn't have to think about her now. Who cared if he couldn't remember the hamburgers? He'd learn how to make them himself. Yeah, Ma, he affirmed, a contemptuous smile squirming across his well-shaped lip. I learned it all myself. Howdy, folks, resounded a cheery voice from inside the house. We're grilling yet? Isidore Trent came striding out onto the patio, his washboard abs tight as a drum underneath his skin-tight white t-shirt. His red hair and its ponytail hung down his strong muscular back like the vibrant mane of a thoroughbred hose. You a horse? Isidore!
Isidore!
Cried Penelope, her soft tone vibrating joyfully. Is it you?
Is it you?
One and the same, Isidore cried.
It's so good to see you.
Great to see you too, Pen, Isidore exclaimed, turning to Bruce. Say, Bruce, great patties! Bruce loosened head gave a stiff nod. He didn't like the way Penelope had said hello to Isidore. Why was she so glad to see him? She hardly knew him. Or at least, he thought she hardly knew him. Guess I get these on the grill, he informed. The two of them didn't seem to notice. He picked up the tray and walked over to the grill. Opening the grill, he put the tray down on the table beside it and put the patties on the grill. He hissed and spattered from the grill while behind his back, Isidore and Penelope were talking about vegetable. What's your favorite, Pen? Isidore wanted to know.
I don't know,
Penelope responded breedily.
I think maybe lettuce or broccoli. I like them to be green.
Bruce flipped the spluttering patties on the grill with an expert flick of his strong wrist. Inside his chest, his heart seemed to splutter too. I just love the frickin' typos in literally every paragraph. Why were they talking about vegetables? He wondered darkly. Well, Penelope was a vegetarian, but he'd never known that Isidore cared about things like that. I'm an artichoke man myself, Isidore declared. Give me a good artichoke anytime, you know. His confident voice kicked down a notch. It's the way you have to peel them, one leaf after another, and by the time you get down to the heart, the soft, warm, luscious, gleaming heart, you're ready. Really ready.
Isidore!
Penelope fluttered with her soft voice.
I didn't know you were so poetic.
There's lots of things you don't know about me, Pen, Isidore asserted confidently. Lots of things. This is wrong. But Bruce's thoughts told him it was all going wrong. He didn't know why. Bruce loosened, piled the now overcooked patties back onto the tray, and carried them over to the patio table where Isadora and Penelope were now laughing heartily at something Isadora had said. He banged the tray down on the table, the glass making a ringing sound that echoed the ringing that was sounding in his ear. Ringing of fury. A ringing of despair. He was losing air, but he knew it. Last night had been an illusion. Some brief spurt of happiness, that was all. It hasn't meant anything, not to her. It was all going wrong. There! He growled, his tone of voice betraying his deep-seated anger. The burgers are cooked! Penelope drew back from his rough behavior. Okay. Her lovely face shaping itself into a puzzled line.
Honey,
She ventured.
you sound so angry.
I'm not angry! Bruce denied, pulling out his wrought high-end patio chair with a clatter. He hurled himself down onto it, his action contrapunting his mouth. He shoved the tray toward them. Go on, hate them! Isadora surged to his feet, his rock-hard muscles rippling and his red tail bouncing. I don't think Pen wants to, he barked. Oh no? Bruce shouted back. And how would you know? Because, Isadora tilted forward, his eyes clutching Bruce's like pincer, his tone low and menacing. I know she's a vegetarian, which you, my friends, seem to have forgotten. Penelope let out a soft gasp. Bruce sat like a statue, turned to stone, feeling despair engulf him like a black blanket of horror, dragging itself over all his senses. That was a fucking train wreck of a sentence. Isadora's right, he acknowledged to himself in heart-rendering misery. I did forget. It's all my fault. Ready to go, Pen? Isadora demanded masterfully.
I guess so.
She hesitated. Isadora gave Penelope his arm, his rock-hard biceps bulging under the sleeve of his white t-shirt like potatoes in a flour sack. Okay. Hesitatingly, she took it. Together, they strode out of the patio and vanished into the night, leaving Bruce sitting forlornly at the table, staring at the hamburger patties under a tree, smoking like the charred ashes of his dreams, while inside his head he was listening to his mother's laughter. So yeah, chapter 12 again, I guess. Yeah, there's two chapter 12. Further proof that nobody read this book before publishing it.
Clearly, what is going on is that this coincides with the other chapter 12, so it's still chapter 12 psych. Have you thought about that?
Yeah, this is chapter 12 on the dark side. The Dark World chapter 12. The reception was a disaster for Kelly from the moment she stepped into the hall. Clearly famished from weeks of living on Xandarin and Diet Pepsi, she made a beeline for the appetizer. The Swedish meatball were obviously the most fatty thing on the table. To her dilated pupils, those little red thing morsel of mad cow must have looked like manna in the making. But as soon as she picked up a tasseled toothpick, the damn meatball launched itself off the stick and made its sticky, greasy, hambling way down the corset of her Verowank bridal gown over all that hand-crotchet tulle and splattered its dead throws on the open toe of her Jimmy Choo shoes. The bride backed away from the table, letting out a strangled gurgle and waving her French manicured fingers in the air. She began hyperventilating. Cadres of catheters descended onto her, seltzer, bleached linen napkins, and industrial string cleansers at the ready. Those wedding pictures were going to have to be photoshopped for days to make that dress ever look ivory again. I backed up, trying to hide the fact that I was laughing so hard I was afraid I was going to spray shrimp cocktail all over my Manolo Blahnik. Okay, so who the hell are you now? Of course, I back right into Richard Isaacs. We haven't said 3 words to each other at the church, but I immediately spotted him there. His harmony suit was so sharply pressed, I imagine you could cut cheese with the crease. Being a stock manipulator and a police stoolie, he'd probably stolen more cheeses than he cut. Still, it was hard to ignore his ruddy good look. I knew he had a yacht anchored on the Outer Banks, and his aftershave helped his allure by retaining a hint of sea hair. The blue in his Ralph Lauren tie made his eyes seem more piercing, and the grey encroaching around his temples had yet to establish a firm beachhead on the rest of his scalp. "Yvonne," he said, in a gravely voice that hinted of a 2-pack-a-day habit only recently dropped, "I was hoping I would bump into you." Rub up against me was more like it. He hasn't moved more than a millimeter since my well-toned derriere had graced his hip. We both watch in silent amusement as Kelly's groom, Bruce, forced his way through the sea of starched aprons to comfort his fainting flower of a bride. Wait, who is talking? "Now, Bruce," I heard the frail flower snap. "You just go away and let these professionals do their work. Go get Ma Hunt Estate some champagne." Dutifully, Bruce let... Who is talking? What the fuck? Okay, Bruce led Callie to her staff and went to get some liquor for Auntie Eustace. Echoing what I was thinking, Richard whispered, "Do you think she sent him to hold this ugliest broad here because she's already afraid of comparisons to younger, prettier company?" Here, he patted me on my back as if to let me know who the young, pretty company was. Now, Kelly's only got maybe 5 years on me. And I know for a fact that she's still got all her natural software and she keeps it in good shape at the gym. Being a lady, I will never mention some of her other habits. Besides, what's a little Botox between us girls? Yeah, because they all do that, yup. Remember, if you're a lady and you're not using Botox, you definitely have failed in your life.
You try using buttocks, you're fine.
Yep. Still, I was flattered that Richard will include me with the younger set. Considering Callie was totally rubbing the cradle-marrying dear little Bruce, for God's sake, she's old enough to be his mother. I was enjoying Richard's attention. Of course, he's old enough to be my father. But let's just say I like them with a little steel in their girders. Plus, he still have shoulders you could hang a line off of. I decided to go for the good so.
"Oh, Richard," I said, "think you can help me with a little problem I'm having?"
Richard backed up a few inches.
"What do you think I was going to ask him for? Help him with insurance? Stocks, tips? What to do about some incorrigible STD?"
I lost my marvelly. Wait. I know. I lost my. Oh my god, I don't know who's talking. Fuck's sake.
Waiting for Fallout
I
Ghoul
think
to
it's
freaking Mario.
I think it's silly fun.
"I lost my navel ring somewhere over by the gift table. I was hoping you could help me look for it."
His eye lit up with a predatory gleam. I hope it wasn't just the idea of finding gold. I planned to have him penning for more than a little circle. I was looking for the big O myself. Over at the gift table, I did a full bend over to scan the door. From his position, I was sure he couldn't miss a good gander at my leopard tongue. It didn't really go with the fuchsia bridesmaid confection I was stuck in, but I felt it added a little je ne sais quoi to a rather dowdy outfit. Besides, it set up my auburn tresses better than fuchsia. Fuchsia, for God's sake! Callie wasn't being shy about trying to make all us other girls look bad. But back to my prey.
"Just a little odd navel ring with an emerald on it. I heard it go clink when I dropped Callie's gift off.
I felt I needed some fortification before
I felt I needed some fortification before hunting under the table for it.
Here, I raised my glass of Veuve Clicquot, and he gallantly clicked his baccarat crystal against mine.
Care to let me look?
I asked, straightening up and giving him the benefit of my fully bleached smile. He gave me a frank, appraising stare. At least I hoped the stare was for me. He could have been tallying up how much silver and how many checks there were lying on that big round table, but I suspected the thought of my tongue was more enticing.
Coming?
I asked, holding up a corner of the tablecloth. Taking a quick glance around the room, I saw that only a bemused waiter who was holding his champagne bottle at the ready was watching us. All the other guests were too involved with the dress drama to give our portion of the room a gander. Without looking to see if it will follow, I crawled under the table. Fortunately, the cream carpeting was very thick. Now I'd see what he was made of. If he was as tough as his shirt, he would probably be the quick retreat from such a silly situation. I held my breath for a few moments. Just as I was starting to feel really foolish, I heard him enter our little domain from the rear. He was awkwardly clutching a nearly full bottle of champagne. Okay. I brought reinforcements, he said, as he poured more bubbly into my glass. In case we get stuck here for a while and need to fortify ourselves for the search. Ah, a man after my own heart, all ready to liquor up for love. We clink glasses again, under the table, by the way. Now, what exactly are we looking for? He asked with a grin.
Oh, just a little golden hoe, I said. It's got a bit of a green emerald, just like my eyes.
I batted my eyelashes at him in case he had somehow failed to notice my startlingly beautiful color. Oh my god, I just love how overly shallow the characterization is. It's amazing. The people who wrote this absolutely knew what they were doing. Encouraged by his attention, I continued.
First, we pet the rug,
I said. Kicking off my slingback, I run my feet seductively over the carpet and all around his pant leg. To his credit, Richard immediately took off his shoes and socks and began running his toe through the lush carpeting. So what do we do when this doesn't work? He asked.
Well, we can start crawling around looking for it, our hands and knees, I said.
Taking care not to bump my head on the bottom of the table, I yet again favored him with a view of my pert derriere. Leaving my shoes behind, he clambered onto his own hands and knees and followed me around.
Ooh, I say, feel here.
I move his hand just over my knee.
Is that something we shall be looking into further? I ask.
I don't know, he responded, fondling my knee in earnest. Let me see if I can find the gold. In a move I will think was practice, if not for the awkward angles we are at which keep our head from bopping on the table, he climbed swiftly over me and shoved his knees up between my legs. Let me see what I can feel, he whispers, moving his hands up from my knee to run over my hips, then my tummy. Then they come to rest on the point of my push-up bra. He rubs his finger in concentric circles around my breast. I haven't had a true feel since my last Gino exam.
Yeah, gynecology.
And Richard's hands are mercifully warm. His tongue reaches up to caress my ear. I can feel him nibble around the diamonds in my lobe. Unable to resist, I say,
"But what about my navel ring?"
One hand leaves my breast and tries to find a way to enter my skin-tight dress. When he can't find an easy entry, he reaches up under the skirt and pinches my belly button. point, I kind of want people to draw this situation. Your navel feels perfect without ornamentation, he whispers brightly in my ear. But for engineering, this is a rather unique experience. I promise to take you to Tiffany's, where you can pick up the emerald of your choice. Unless... And here he pushes my bum into the rug, leaning his full weight against me so I can feel how ready he is for an adventure. Unless, he says again, you want to roll around some more and see what we can find. I struggle slightly, wondering when I lost the upper hand in this seduction. My foot hits the champagne bottle and cold bubbly spills over, adding a tingly sensation to my toes. As his hand have now slipped from my navel to my love shack, I'm in no position to do more than wiggle. I have to muffle my moans by biting down hard on his thigh, because all around us I hear guests returning to the room. His hands move inside of me with the skill of many years of experience.
This is why I like my men with a little steel in their girder, I think. None of these pretty boy of Cali's will ever known how to do this so quickly or so well.
The band finally
It
stops
looks
playing.
like you've just subscribed.
Thank you, Ice Cream
Congratulations.
for the 16 months of Thank you so much. Oh my god.
This romantic scene between Mario and Selma Bouvier is making me celibate.
Yep. At this point, this is just gonna dissuade everyone from ever, having any kind of sexual encounters. The band finally stopped. Go ahead.
I want to say, you say, oh, I want someone to illustrate this. The way your voice is right, I'm just imagining this being a ghoul from Fallout trying to seduce Mario. Making this absolutely horrifying, actually.
Yeah, it just, when I read this with Use Worm, we just picked up a whole lot of really weird voices for pretty much every character, and now I'm just trying to remember what they were. I just remember two of the voices, which is Richard Isaac as well as Bruce Lucent. Alright, the band finally stops playing that insipid Butterfly Kisses. Trust Kelly to choose something so banal. And it moves on to the Stones. Richard seemed more than ready to pump me up. He moved his hand from my boob, and we were so close I could feel the tension of the teeth as his zipper slowly uncoiled. When I felt his muscle move against me, I realized he had been going commando. I got wet just thinking about it. Proving how strong he was when he snapped the reinforced lace waistband on my tongue one-handed, as I felt his missile seeking my silhouette with all the power of American know-how behind it. I readied for the first strike. All of a sudden, I saw the unmistakably sheep shoes of the champagne-toting waiter appear inches from my nose. There was a soft knock on the table over my head. "She's it, the jig is up," I heard the waiter say. "Your champagne is soaked into the tablecloth, and they're bringing over a new one before all the gifts get wet." I moaned with frustrations and rolled my hip, trying to get a taste of Nirvana before the world will stop my fun. But Richard was already rolling over and zipping up. "Another time, ma chérie," he said. Without even a final kiss, he was gone.
"Oh, he'll pay for that,"
I thought, and gathering up my tongue, along with the scattered threads of my dignity, I prepared to dance my ass off for the rest of the night. There we go, we finally got rid of chapter 12. So, alright, chapter 13. The Atlanta rain came down hard and glitzy blue and transparent, in a gorgeous murky haze over the bustling city, as the popular and highly exclusive cafe reposed in its cozy yet diffidently a cornerness along the posh avenue lined with trees and littered with pedestrians and people walking in their various and sun-dried pits. He sat at a table near the window, watching the traffic and the gentle yet soothing pitter-patter of the little feet that sounded in their earlobe, but that was the purity of the rain. Rain soothed and made gently the soul's musing. Isadore Trent lazily perused the menu of this trendy place, filled with extravagantly outrageous and overpriced items such as foie de grass and pâté. The wine list alone made his pocketbook shudder with delicacy. But of course he pretended he could afford it all, and more, and then he merely put down the menu with a sniffling disdain and addressed his companion across the table from him. What a great lunch, eh, Isaac? What will you be having? Not sure yet, replied Isaac Stevens, the older man. Hair close trim and distinctive, and bared pepper and salt imposando. Are we gonna bring the fucking pepper and salt beard again? And gave a satisfied smirk and a wink. I think I'd like to watch the scenery first. I know how you and Bruce Lucent love this kind of thing too, young rotting fellows that you are. And he mentioned with a brave and subtle rotation of his steady eyes, not toward the rainy window, but at the passing buxom and slender waitresses, and well-dressed young woman being seated a little away from them 2 tables down. His eyes were visibly popping with sensual overload.
Yes, looking old man,
said Henry Archer in the empty seat next to them. Only Isadore could hear that voice, ringing like a bell of the Notre Dame Cathedral in his mind, and resounding in the dinnerware, and rebounding in the cutlery and the window glass, for Henry Archer was dead and buried. His post-accident twisted body rotting in his resplendent grave, for he could definitely afford it, and his wife Kelly would inherited his millions, was just decent enough to respect his last wishes regarding his own corpse of his very self. Kelly, the frigid socialite, arrogant woman.
Okay, within this one single chapter, she's married and the guy's already dead. Wait,
Yeah.
so this is the different person. Never mind, she was marrying Bruce.
How is business? How is business? Or shall I even ask? Said Isadore, with his red hair pulled back in a casual yet stylish ponytail. Hard-bodied and gushing sex appeal, as only a 20-year-old young man could. In his very prime in existence and radical experience of life, wasn't he like freaking 50 or 60?
This is clearly years back.
He had no need to stare at the woman passing by, because they continuously stared at him. Watch his red-headed, careless macho, yet a sensitive ponytail, his rippling muscles concealed under neat casual wear. He drew them like a magnet drew hungry flies.
That's what you think you are,
said Henry Archer, the eternal voices in his very mind.
But you are not, you know. You are not. Not ever.
The rain continued to beat down, first patter than ever come down in drizzles, and for a moment Isadore was distracted enough by the eternal rhythmic sound to gaze outside the window, and just looking at the sublime incandescent beauty of the city nature flourishing before him. Weeping, crying, haze, and silvery shadows stood leaning in the air before the window. A young passerby woman posed, leaning to pick up a bag that fell into a puddle, and for a moment she reminded him of Irene with her long blonde hair and voluptuous training body. Oh, so a ripe acacia fragrant mouth.
Yes, it was a hot number, that one,
mused Henry Archer, ghostly and virile just below his ears, and across the table in that empty and ominous seat.
He's a fucking ghost.
Yeah. "Hush, bastard! You devil!" Isidore wanted to say, but couldn't, because Irene's father, Isaac Stevens, will think he mad, or worse, he will begin to suspect. Irene was there in his mind, and so was Henry Archer, who grinned in his suave manner, once again reminding by his confident glossy white teeth why her had been his willing mistress and lover. Wow, what a great fucking sentence.
You know, her has been.
Wait, what?
Her has been.
Hold on a bit. Oh, wait, Isaac Stevens and Richard Isaac are two different characters. Oh my fuck. Who was
Well,
who
they have
again?
different names.
Who the fuck was who? Just hold on. I just gotta check out. Okay, Richard Isaac. Okay, Richard Isaac is Mario, and Isaac Stevens, I don't know who he is anymore. There is a matter of Richard Isaacs, of course, said Isaac suddenly and quietly through the sedate thicket of his distinctive beard, putting down the menu on top of the plate, and inadvertently making the water glass clank gently and ricochet merrily across the salad fork. Wait, oh my god, I'm so lost. Yes, I know. The rain pitter-pattered, and there was silence in the noisy cafe, or maybe in their minds. Silence. Noisy cafe silence. Moment later, their young strawberry auburn-headed waitress attended them with a pleasing, winsome grin full of healthy teeth and gums. Ah, good to see that she goes to the dentist. Her generous bosom swept forward in her tight-fitting blouse, unbuttoned precariously and yet full of devious intent to reveal the tender, rosy, having flesh under the starch-straining cotton. "What may I get you, gentlemen?" she said in a honey-purred voice, in a flash of wild pearly teeth, in a face of unusual refinement for such a creature. What was she doing here, in this seating and empties a trendy morass of human dross and raging worldly clamor? Fucking hell. Ah, mused Isidore to himself. She's another unfortunate, probably alone in the world and needing to pay her way in the world of men. She may be writing a novel in secret, and I know her kind. And he had an immediate need to comfort and console her, and felt a pang of desire in the southern regions of the hard young body. "Give us another minute, honey, will you?" said Isaac, grinning at the waitress and winking gently like an older man who is respectable, no doubt, yet had spent a wild youth sowing his wild oat in a bit of wheat and barley too. "Would you like some water, sir?" said the nubile waitress, addressing Isaac. But Isidore felt her posture straining toward him, like Jack toward the beanstalk of his dream. He could almost read her eagerness to serve him, not the other. The world narrowed and spun, then receded like the glory of the outer rain and inner worldliness. Silence and moments of pitter-patter. "You are the one with a sex death wish," hissed Henry Archer in his ghostly presence permeating the room. "Just look at her. You know she wants you. They all want you. Except Irene. You could never have her, because she will always be mine. She cannot ever forget my youthful bodybuilder physique, the firmness and the rock hardness of me, the only things that would satisfy. Her father does not know that his sweet innocent Irene was a wildcat in my bed. I could always make her mew.
and to my musical key, none other. She purred for me like a bobcat kitten before it became fully grown, gained poundage and muscle bulk, and discovered other wildlife of its kind and ilk. Vibrant, innocent, but sensual puring. Ever puring for me she was. Actually, I think I'm ready to order now. Isidore, firmly ignoring it all, flipping back his red forelock out of his. He had a ponytail earlier! And beyond the back to where the.
Doesn't mean it has bangs pulled back, side. Come on.
Yeah, but I thought that generally that was a way so that you will get rid of flocks in your hair. And beyond the back to where the bulk of the abundant and suggestive ponytail rested against his wide, strongly, utterly virile back. A back that could do the beast with two back as well. When one of the two backs came into question and under scrutiny. But the other back, of course, depended on the woman writhing with him, under him, and on top of him. Ha, the beast they will make. He ignored the voice of Henry Archer and the ghostly vacant and evacuated presence among them, and concentrated on thoughts of lunch and thoughts of Richard Isaacs, while retracting and folding away all distracting thoughts such as Irene's blonde fairness, the back of his subconscious mentality. We really should talk to Richard about his behavior, said Isaac's low baritone, while the waitress deftly and smoothly poured water over his shoulder into Isidore's glass and then Isaac's glass. Her bosom was almost spilling outside, and the depth of her cleavage was undeniable, like the depths of the liquid in the clear, cool jug and the profundity of the dripping rain outside. The metaphors are the best in this book. Isidore visibly forced himself to unglue his eyes from the panorama of mummeries and femininity and said, I will have the lightly braised spring lamb au jus and a vinaigrette au coq. Would you like soup or salad? Said the waitress in a breathless soprano. Her impressive memory fuck off. Damn it. Was inches away from Isaac's distinctive bearded face.
Oh, watch. Is there what it's supposed to be? I just like fucking Jurassic Park trespasser. I look down at my booze to see what time it is.
Yep. Well, the clock is about filled at half. Salad, please. Salad, please, or what kind of dressing do you have? Said Isidore, lifting his sensual narrow eyes from his table sitting and allowing them free ring and bounce over her lovely fray. We have French, Italian, some ripping tomato and avocado, Thousand Island, honey mustard, local French, local Italian, local Thousand Island, Oriental Thai oregano, and a house dressing with secret ingredients, which I highly recommend. Go ahead. Go ahead, order the French, muck Henry Archer. You know Irene's French kisses were sublime, and yes, I tasted them repeatedly and dolefully. Local Italian, said Isidore, never blinking, yet narrowing his eyes and then widening them in involuntary but firm pupil dilation and watching the wavelength and frequency of her eye, so that the waitress was the first one to blink away. But first, she heaved her chest in an automotive reflex that was not to be denied. There's always saying, Richard has gone too far at this point, interjected Isaac Stevens, pulling down the white linen napkin. Sterile like Cassie Archer, yet pure like Hiram Stevens, on his lap. I saw him the other day at the racket club, and he looked pale and just sick with exhaustion. Wonder what's the matter this time. The waitress jotted down Isidore's order, then looked at Isaac with the patience of a saint who has to work tables in order to support a family and possibly just the writing habits.
yet just of writing habits. Not to mention pay bills and federal taxes. Isidore picked up his water glass ruefully, considering what was with it. A cousin of the rain pattering on the window, drew the parallel between the microcosm in the glass and the macrocosmos outside. No, one is pure, not even the rain, said Henry Archer's hateful, ghostly voice. Isidore's fingers shook so that in that moment he spilled some of the cool and refreshing once tap, but now double-filtered content of the glass, just droplet of mundane spring purity, onto his shirt. "Ah!" Isidore exclaimed, and grabbed a napkin to dab at his shirt in some confusion, while Isaac and the waitress and the whole restaurant and possibly the whole world stared at him, and the moment extended itself into eternity and then redoubled upon itself, like the emulsifying and moisturizing nature of the rain. In the empty seat across the table, Henry Archer cackled like an evil genie without a bottle to return to, nor needing one, since he was fully dead, and Isidore could make himself believe it at long last. His spirit and conscience hung boldly in the air, while their hair outside continued to come down in the greatest flood. And Isidore suddenly felt himself refreshed and free of shame and guilt, and able to speak at last. He opened his mouth, cleared his throat, swallowed the past, digested the moment, and started to honestly speak to Isaac Stevens about Richard Isaacs. In the deepest closet back of his mind, however, there will always be the rain, and Irene, with her raining liquid blonde hair, the complex daughter of his lunch companion and confidant. The rain came down. Oh, joyous yet serene, emancipated rain. Okay, so was the rain a slave at some point? What is going on?
Slaves and nature. Finally released from the clouds.
Yeah, I
Imprisonment.
guess. Alright, chapter 14. Penelope sat, sipping a peach martini, her third, while the staff hustled all around her table. She hasn't been back to Atlanta's Food 101 restaurant since graduating college, but it had the merit of terrific food, no loud music, and excellent bartender, only one. And above all else, there was absolutely no connection to her time with Bruce. She had no few fond memories of the place, and the memories were justified. Just since she'd arrived, no fewer than 3 guys, 2 pro hockey players and a minor league pitcher had hit on her. Remember, that was back when Atlanta had a hockey team, the Atlanta Thrashers. Once, she would have enjoyed their attentions. Now she was impatiently awaiting Andrea's arrival. Andrea, who never came on time unless she happened to be laying on someone's watch during sex? What does that even mean? What? Andrea.
I know. Oh, that's stupid. That's really stupid. Who never really came on time unless you happened.
Andrea was gorgeous in ways even Penelope could appreciate, since Bruce had never given Andrea a second glance. Yet she was engaged to Bruce's college roommate, Jeff. Oh no, now Bruce Lucent as a roommate. And still had managed to retain her friendship with Penelope despite Jeff's request not to. Penelope was just signaling her buff, young waiter Greg to bring another martini when Andrea appeared, striding swift toward her table, Her lean 5'6" frame and dancer's leg with calf pulling tautly as she approached, had heads turning up and down the aisle. When she bent over and kissed Penelope on the cheek, 2 guys nearly fell off their chairs, and another received a vicious teeth-rattling smack from his female companion. What? Okay, this is the one portion that will definitely work well in a movie setting. Andrea was breathless, causing her chest to heave enough to seasicken even the mightiest of sailors.
I'm so sorry I'm late. We were in a planning meeting this morning when the main server failed, and it's been non-stop phone time with our clients all day. So spoke Miss Temporary Secretary.
Penelope waved over Greg.
It's okay. Let's just get you a drink.
Within moments, they were delivered 2 peach martini and a sex on the beach for Andrea. She's just taking 2 fucking martinis at once? Oh my god.
Why not?
The women sipped and made small talk over a plate of appetizers, though Penelope was itching to get to her main concern. Penelope's simple Caesar salad and Andrea's North Georgia trout had finally arrived when she finally broached the main issue.
Are you going to tell me, or are we both going to believe it never happened?
Andrea said with a sigh.
How about let's do that, Penny? Heads down, terminado. Do we have to go through all the detail? The prenup is singed, the rings are exchanged, and the gift check cash. Let it go. Let him go.
Penelope shook her head, her ponytail waving behind her as if to sweat a platoon of troublesome flies.
I need to hear it, Andrea. I need to hear it for myself before I can relegate him to the arms of that woman and move on. Once you tell me about the wedding, I can put Bruce behind me for good.
A small childlike part of her petulantly crossed the dainty fingers of her left hand, where it could lay out of sight in her lap. Andrea took a deep breath that nearly shattered the already precarious equilibrium of her blouse button. What the fuck?
If you were just wearing several sizes too small, is what's going on here.
Looks like I put my small sister blouse. All right, if you really need to torture yourself, I will. The ceremony and reception were held at the Archer place.
Penelope snorted.
It was probably as much an exorcism of her husband's spirit as it was a wedding.
Andrea raised her hand with all the authority of a 20-year veteran school crossing guard on a rainy spring afternoon.
If you're going to be like that, I'm not going to continue. Jeff isn't thrilled that you and I are still friends, but out of respect for me, let's just get this over with.
Atlanta nodded.
Sorry, go on.
Andrea nibbled as she spoke, covering the initially distasteful taste of the tale with the smoky richness of restaurant special recipe barbecue sauce.
There were only about 50 guests, mostly on Bruce's side. Callie doesn't have much family, and I guess most of her guests were business associates from Archer's business.
Andrea paused for a sip of 6 before plunging on with all the subtlety of the neckline of her favorite blouse.
Before you ruin this already awkward story, yes, Callie wore white, and her bouquet was calla lilies. Cute touch, no? A personal assistant of her, Maud, Millicent, whoever, was a maid of honor. Bruce and Jeff wore gray tuxes with white sneakers.
Are you gonna fucking wear sneakers at a wedding?
Gray tuxes with white sneakers for a wedding.
Yep.
It was a very simple ceremony, and Bruce's mother cried the whole
In case you don't remember, Bruce's mother is fucking dead.
That's why she's just crying.
To be honest, I half expected you to jump out of the shrubbery or from an helicopter or something screaming, "Stop this mockery of a marriage!" when the minister asked if anyone knew any reason why these two should not be married. Penelope glowered a bit, but Andrea rushed ahead, having warm greatly to her tale. Jeff gave a marvelous toast. He told that story about the night Bruce and those basketball players stole all the bread that had been delivered to the college cafeteria, and there was no bread for a meal the next day, and how he woke up Jeff at 3 a.m. and clobbered him with a loaf of French bread, and there was bread all over the floor in their room, and Jeff ended up cleaning it. But how they've stayed friends ever since. That story still cracks me up, but I guess it's more touching now that I see what a bonding moment it was for them. Penelope waited while Andrea finished off the last of her ribs. Much as she generally liked Andrea, the girl had a certain flighty, make that hare-headed quality to her personality that was scratching at Penelope's nerve, like a cat with 7 paws in a soulful factory. You're about to enter a dimension where a cat has 7 paws. Why couldn't she see that Bruce's marriage was not a subject to be taken humorously? Andrea let out a burp, not so manly a belch as to attract undue attention to them, but not so ladylike that one or two heads did not turn their way again. Wiping her mouth delicately and fiddling about with the few tiny fish bones on her plate, she went blithely on. And their vows were so lovely, Penny. They wrote them themselves, and I never knew a computer geek like Bruce could be so eloquent. Callie went first, and she said the loveliest thing about Bruce and them and their relationship. How he had pulled her up from the deepest depth of her mourning and given her reason to rise from her bed in the morning light, and yet still more and greater reason to return to it at nightfall. She swore to love him all the day in his life. Penelope's mind decided this was a fine moment to play heckler to this divine comedy. Wonderful! She means to outlive this husband, too. Andrea was oblivious to this bleak internal exchange. And Bruce's vow. Oh, Penny, you will have been so proud to hear him say such things. He went on about how Callie was the tech support agent who had taken him off of Moose Sally's hold and brought him through the ultimate upgrade of the operating system of his heart. Fuck you! Oh my god. And made us thus far in lowly existence 100% compatible with life, the universe, and everything. I was so moved I made Jeff quote every tech specification he could remember while we made love that night. You had no idea how hot that stuff can make a girl. We shall try to get you a computer nerd of your own. Penelope barely registered the last of Andrea's tale as the harsh reality of the situation struck her with all the destructive force of reality. Bruce had no feelings for her. That demanding woman had rebooted his memory, erasing all the good, warm, tender history they'd shared. She was nothing but a part of that sad and lonely existence from which he was fleeing. He felt nothing for the time they'd shared, nothing for all the amazingly raunchy and kinky things she'd allowed him to do to her, or had she do to him, when his internet exploration had introduced him to one of the many particularly exotic forms of foreplay that had kept them abed on many a night and many a feigned sick day from work. Penelope's vision closed in on her, leaving her fully aware of only two things. Andrea licking her lips while describing the decadently delicious German Black Forest wedding cake. The thought, why did Henry Archer had to die? Why couldn't it have been Bruce?
With that, she lapsed into unconsciousness, earning a bruise on her forehead from her fork and a crouton up her nose before Buff Greg carried her to the manager's office and called 911. What? 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 Oh my god. Anyway, before I read chapter 15, it's time to get a water refill because, oh boy. Alright, so chapter 15. Less than 60 seconds after she'd come through the front door had Bruce Lucent and Callie Archer's wedding reception. Yvonne Perrin knew she was in trouble. Hey there, how's my very favoritist bridesmaid? Yeah, by the way, this is very good use of justification here. Yvonne looked around just in time to dodge a beefy face and obviously drunk man who was trying to kiss her. Not! You remember me? I'm Uncle Roger, he said. I was at the rehearsal dinner. He tottered slightly and pulled a mash-looking disposable camera out of his pocket. Let's get one of those nice people to take our picture together. What the fuck? Wow, this chapter starts with a bang. She knew how that would work. Get his arm around here for a good long grow up and a couple of wet kisses, while some other hapless guest took forever to figure out the camera's dead simple control. She privately vowed that if she couldn't get out of it, she was going to do the whole thing with a lovely smile on her face and one of her spike heels planted squarely in the middle of Uncle Roger's foot. Mercifully, the little cell phone in her handbag chose that moment to start ringing. She transferred the bag to her Uncle Roger's side hand, made an apologetic, just a sec face, and flipped open the phone. Maria! Lisa! Said an unfamiliar voice. Even beam. Hi, honey. I've been looking for you too. Maria? ¿Estás? The guy on the phone sounded urgent. That was probably why he dialed the wrong number. Estoy en mi casa. Necesito ir a mi trabajo. They are? Right now? Yvonne turned and made a quick, this is going to take a tiny wee bit longer gesture to Uncle Roger, then went back to the call. Tell them to wait, and I'll be right there. Por favor, Maria, estoy muy tarde para mi trabajo. Sweetie, where are you? I'm right by the front door. Yvonne stood on tiptoe and scanned the room, looking for a good escape route. The big arched doorway over to her right sounded promising. Just tell me where to go and I'll be there, quick as a bunny, she told the guy. He let out a furious burst of idiomatic Spanish and hung up hard. Thanks, honey, I'll be right here, she caroled and snapped the phone shut. Gotta run, she told Uncle Roger and took off through the crowd. She should have known, Yvonne reflected bitterly. God knows Callie had emailed her enough pictures while the wedding was in its planning stages. Trouble was, she never been able to get the attachments to open. They were been X'd or something like that. Probably a virus. But even without seeing the pictures, it should have occurred to her that if anyone in the world were capable of picking out non-sucky bridesmaids' dresses, it was Callie. So she discovered when she'd arrived at the church and gotten a glimpse of it. They weren't sucky at all. Not the problem. Also, I'm sorry, I cannot ignore the spaces. They are totally the way they are meant to be.
Oh, Lord, she said out loud. It's practically the same dress and hat. She'd had just enough time to
She'd had just enough time to dash back to her car to grab a lightweight shawl. What the heck is a lightweight shawl? It's just what the fuck?
Yeah, lightweight shawl.
And she providentially left lying on the back seat 2 weeks earlier, then come back and find an out-of-the-way seat at the rear of the church during the ceremony would be looking at her. Anyway, but that wasn't going to work during the reception. At close range, the shawl just looked tatty, and when she was standing up, it did nothing to camouflage the rest of her gown so distinctive. With her subtly off-shade organza overdress that looked like absolutely nothing else worn at the party, except by the bridesmaid, of course. Sometimes, life is just not fair. A few minutes later, Yvonne found what she needed, an out-of-the-way dressing area with a good mirror, the pool house way over the other side of the ground. It wasn't exactly private, but it was around 3 corners from the pool house entrance. The pool house itself was reassuringly dark inside. Besides, with all the guests still up at the main house doing their initial meet, greet, and congratulate, she had the place to herself. She switched on to the overhead lights directly above the mirror and took a long, hard look at her dress. Will the organza come off without leaving the underdress rags? It seemed a shame to remove it. She'd love this dress, but consoled herself with the thought that if 6 other women in their social circle had the same exact thing happening in their closet, she'd never have been able to wear it anyway. Yeah, what the hell? Yeah, this entire chapter is how dare you wear the same thing as me. Stretching to infinity and beyond. Yvonne unzipped the dress to her waist and took down her bodice so she could look at its construction. She was in luck! There, underneath the facing, was a neat little row of handset stitches fastening the overdress to the underlying material. Must have been designed to be removable all along.
Caraway dresses.
Yep. She rummaged in her purse for the ornate little pocket silver knife she'd inherited from her grandmother, then went to work ripping stitches. What the fuck is going on? This chapter is so dumb. The front came away easily, and the back was nearly as quick. That left the waist. She looked around, sighed, shrugged, peeled her dress off entirely. When she was done, she bundled up the remain and put her dress back on to see what she had. Less dress, that's for sure, she said aloud to the mirror. It was still pretty, but now it showed far more skin. And with the organza draping gone, she'd had to forego her bra and its attached slip. She shimmied her shoulder experimentally and watched the effect. She didn't quite fall out. The matching organza sun hat will have to go as well. Before, it had matched the dress perfectly. Now all it matched was the oddly forlorn-looking roll of fabric she tucked safely away on a high shelf. Yvonne started carefully removing the hat pins that had secured the hat to her elaborate hairdo. The minute the hat was off, her glossy red hair came tumbling down around her back and shoulder. Yvonne sighed in exasperation. In this humidity, she could see it was already starting to curl. She twisted the unruly red hank into a loose knot, at the nape of her neck, tying it up with the headband and cluster of silk flowers from her cast-off hat. Very nice, a male voice said lazily from somewhere behind there. It says a lot for a dress that I don't mind seeing you put it back on. Yvonne gasped and whirled around, looking for the source of the voice while she groped behind her for her long hatpin. Whoop! Sorry, said the voice. There was the ratcheting click of a Zippo lighter, and in the brief flare of its light, she saw an older man in formal wear, sitting in an ornate, high-back wicker armchair. Then the lighter clicked shut, and all she could see in the shadows was the red glow. Shadows was the red glow at the end of his cigario. How long have you... she began, then stopped. I heard you come in. I'm afraid so, he said. I'd have to beg your pardon. I had just finished making a phone call when you walked in. In the dark? She said. Not too dark to make a phone call. You're blinded by those overheads. Inside her head, an inane little voice was busily calculating. I had the slip on when I took the dress up. I put the dress back on over the slip. I pulled the slip off over my head while I still had the dress on. It didn't see much. Another voice was saying, formal wear. He's either a guest or he's an employee who has something to lose. Still not safe, but maybe I'll be okay. Keep him talking. Where's my knife? Where's my phone? And something that wasn't exactly a voice was thinking something like, I expect you're right. She walked over to the switch and turned on the rest of the room lights. The mysterious man in the chair now looked less mysterious, but perhaps more intriguing. Wide shoulders, narrow waist, a ruddy complexion. Not young, but neither afraid or nor defeated by his age. He looked, she suddenly thought, like a man who was lightly sparring with his age and enjoying the fight. His suit was perfectly tailored. He never rented that suit, she thought, not with his build. She approved of both. The man returned her attention, studying her as she did him. He looked pleased. Yvonne felt herself blushing, and the vexations and frantic pace of the day evaporating as though they never happened. She was in her 30s, her girlhood long behind her, and she never lacked for male companionship, but she suddenly felt that little pleasurable dizziness of the dance beginning again, as always feeling it was the first time in the history of the world. The nice thing about being in your 30s, she reflected, is that you can appreciate that feeling for what it's worth and not worry about what it isn't. Then memory kicked in. Richard Isaac! She said, I've met you! One of Bruce Lucent's parties! Smile widened. Yvonne! He said, I didn't catch the rest of your name. It was noisy. You were wearing green silk, the exact shade of the philodendron hanging behind you. She laughed in, feeling absurd and absurdly flattered, and walked across the room to offer him her hand. How do you do? She said. I'm pleased to finally make your acquaintance. He took her hand and held it lightly in his own for a few seconds. I'm afraid I'm really gonna have to ask you for your forgiveness, he said. I should have said something when you came in, but I didn't, and after that I was fascinated. I had no idea that women were capable of transformation on such a short notice. You mean my dress? I had to. I was ambushed. What kind of ambush makes you take your dress apart?
A gorilla.
I guess. As Yvonne walked back to the narrow shelf in front of the mirror to collect her bits of belonging and stow them back in her purse, she said, I cleverly deduced that you weren't at the wedding ceremony. You are correct. What did I miss? Bridesmaid, 6 of them. Every one of them wearing that same exact dress and hat. His jaw dropped. My God, isn't there some kind of a law against that? Bridesmaids aren't supposed to dress like human beings.
You'd think, would you? Yvonne said. But Callie picked them all.
He shook his head, and then a thought struck him, and he began to laugh. Yvonne watched, feeling a little worried.
Share?
She asked. I was just thinking that you're being terribly brave. My first wife once wore the same dress worn by just one other woman at a party, and she sulked about it for a week and a half. If she'd arrived to find 6 other women wearing her dress.
Spontaneous human combustion,
Yvonne said solemnly.
I'd always wondered what caused it.
Then a brief silence fell between them, and she found herself wondering self-consciously whether she was keeping him from the party. Just as she was wondering whether she should say something about it, he said, "This is a lovely, it's what are you, but should I ask whether I'm keeping you from the party?"
Ow!
She said, at once relieved and afraid. She looked too relieved.
I was about to ask you the same. I have no obligations beside attending, and if I know Bruce and Callie, this party will run through tomorrow morning. How about you?
I'm here for the party. I do have one other item on my agenda, which is to try to have a conversation with a former business associate of one of my former business associates. A man named Roger. I don't know his last name. I'm supposed to recognize him from an old snapshot they found in the files.
If it's the Uncle Roger I met as soon as I came in the door, you're too late.
He's left already?
He's 3 sheets to the wind. That was the other reason I came back here and started hacking my dress apart.
Richard studied her bare shoulders. And is it supposed to discourage him?
It's supposed to put a crimp on any further round of, "Hey, sweetheart, didn't I meet you at the rehearsal dinner?"
Ah, he said. Now I understand. You took off your uniform and you buried it.
Exactly. I'm a non-combatant. Now, shall I take a look at this snapshot of yours? I think I'd recognize him if I saw him.
Richard shook his head. I left it behind. Picked up a cane she hadn't noticed he was carrying and got up out of his chair. He was moving a little stiffly. I don't remember that from the party. Oh my god. Yvonne said,
When were you hurt?
An auto accident. Nothing worth mentioning. I'll get over it. I just haven't yet. He limped over to what Yvonne had taken for a section of wall. Will you turn out to the light? There, now. Good. This is a louvered window. You can see most of the yard from here. Tell me if you spot Uncle Roger. Richard started turning the crank that would open the louvers, and Yvonne came and stood beside him. She abruptly realized she was close enough to smell him. A good smell, hard work and clean skin, and a hint of old spice, and to feel the slight radiant warmth of his body there in the darkness. There was a single sharp knock in her chest, as though her sternum had been kicked from the inside, and from the moment she closed her eyes and fought to keep her balance, her heart was hammering so hard that she thought she must have surely be able to hear it. There, he said, and she blinked, and shook her head a little, trying to clear it. Outside the louvered window, the late afternoon was turning into late evening. The lamps strung up across the yard made little pools of lights in the dusk, and partygoers clustered underneath them. Richard was right. You could see everything from here. She looked carefully, mentally dividing up the area and truly scanning one section before moving on to the next. And
There!
you can see him.
Yes!
She glanced up at Richard, staring out the window, his eyes fixed on some object. She turned back to the scene.
Medium blue suit, going bald, over there, next to the woman in the red caftan and all the gold beads, see? That man who keeps bouncing up on his toes when he talks?
Him, yes.
I'd already thought so from seeing it up the Pikachu. If he told you his name's Roger, I'd say that just about settles it. Watch a little longer. Definitely too drunk to talk to. And he turned to face her, and once more she could feel her heart hammering. She paused a moment, listening. There was a second sound mixed in with it. I can hear your heart beating. I can hear your heart beating, she whispered, and impulsively laid her hand on his chest. Puts his arm around her and pull her close, and then they kiss, and for a while the rest of the universe went away. When they broke off the kiss, the way he looked down at her was like someone reading, and he looked at her for a long time. As a matter of fact, no, he said conversationally. I don't do this sort of thing often. Kissed her again. And neither do you.
Thank you,
Yvonne said.
I was about to say something stupider than that. What do you want to do?
A lot of things. Take my hand. You really can't see in the dark, can you? There's a door over in the corner. It has a lock on it.
And on the other side of it,
big lumpy hole sofa and a dead TV set. And something even better.
What's that?
She said, feeling for the wall. She heard the door open in front of her. A fuse box switch that'll turn off the power to this whole poor house. Nobody will come bothering us if they make it their way through a couple of unlit rooms to do it.
Oh, you are clever, she said. Are you sure you haven't done this before?
I'm sure. It's the sheer inspiration that's making me ingenious. A long time later, he shifted position, kissed her neck and hear him murmured, I lie.
Past blur perfect subjunctive.
She sits sleepily.
What did you lie about?
I'm not doing this very often, Pat.
I already have some doubts about that.
Shucks, ma'am, that weren't nothing. He ran his finger slowly up to the inside of her thigh, starting from her knee, and smiled in satisfaction to feel her spine arch backward, and hear her long, soft gasp as she inhaled. What I meant to say, he continued, is that I'm not really committed to that interactive model.
Is that so?
She squirmed slightly to get better leverage, then wrapped one leg around his waist and tucked her heel into the small of his back.
I think I can live with that.
What the fuck?
No one will bother us if we fuck in their murder hut.
Well,
in this abandoned building behind the galley, you see.
Well, you see, there's so many dark rooms. Nobody's gonna get there.
Follow my labyrinth. Due to my labyrinth, we shall do it.
Alright, chapter 16. Yvonne felt a thrill as she was finally able to leave the expanse that was I-85 and enter the 4-lane road that is 316, the Atlanta Highway. She unconsciously began singing the B-52's Love Shack to herself. She reflected joyously that she had passed the CNN Center, Fulton County Stadium, and the other relics of the days when Ted Turner seemed to run a country, instead of trying to give all his money away to places such as the United Nations. The United Nations is not a place.
Or is it, psych?
Well, I guess it is now.
The world's largest multinational charity organization, you see.
Yeah. It isn't, she thought, that everything in Atlanta is named Peachtree something. Only bad novelists believe that. So much as the city had moved beyond peach trees, that thought shifted the soundtrack of her mind to Aerosmith. I'm not a ragdoll myself, she reaffirmed to herself. Her thought moving to Rory Edward. Ah, fuck. Another new character. Stop it, novel. Richard Isaacs had been a pleasant fling.
It had, after all, lasted one night more than she had expected. She had ultimately, that second night, decided that even his skill at selecting clothes that made him look 5 years younger was not enough. It will not compensate for the fact that his life was spent playing games, and that he will play her for as long as he wanted. Her friend Sue Young had once told her,
Every once in a while, you just have to bend over and.
have you been fucking living in a prison? Sue had casually continued, being explicit about where, and Yvonne had been appropriately offended. She also. Oh my god. She also realized her friend will never understand that sex was about power, not love. She also realized her friend will never understand that putting yourself into such a position will forever reduce your role in the relationship until you both start in hating you for doing it. Yvonne had seen articles that noted that some hot tramps who might be seen as her competition. Oh my fucking god.
You see, Psych. There's only two types of people in this world: tops and bottom. There's no in between.
I guess. Okay, alright. Yvonne had seen articles that noted that some hot tramps who might be seen at her competition proclaimed their enjoyment of that particular proclivity. Is that supposed to be about the procreation of your. Nah, whatever. She shuddered at the thought, wondering idly if that meant that the next generation will be romanticizing the ordinary housewife of yesterlore. She couldn't romanticize women who had thrived in the South by feeding their husband high cholesterol food and encouraging them to go hunting and fishing in all types of weather. Yeah, let's romanticize women who take you to McDonald's, I guess. The premature deaths may have produced pensions, life insurance, and financial security, but steel magnolias could only enjoy the second half of their life, and then only when the affairs of the first half went unacknowledged. She drove toward the exurban area that allowed Atlanta to describe itself as a metropolis. Even the names Alpharetta, Marietta indicated places where the man of the house kept the little woman. It was as if the transition to sucker mom from ordinary housewife had never occurred. But isn't it the same frick? Metropolitan Atlanta was more an extended backwoods area than an accelerated city. Now that Turner had taken the cash and the suits in New York had destroyed much of the rest of the empire, Yvonne wondered how the next generation will fare. Not that she cared about the 20-something with tongue piercings. They were a large reason she found her greatest success with the Levitra generation. She preferred men who no longer found drug-enhanced pleasures of the flesh more important than a woman who could keep them interested for a half hour or so before the drug was effective. What is this fucking chapter going about? God, I hate it so far. Erman were those whose definition of foreplay largely consisted of being able to look fondly, share a glass of expensive wine, and listen nostalgically to doo-wop or their classic rock. Pleasant conversation and lubricated condoms, the rest. What the fuck? So, essentially, her kind of man is Frank Zappa? Was that it? Today, thinking of Rory, Yvonne pondered what to wear. She approached the well-monikered Commerce, with its delightful selection of store. Oh yeah, my favorite store chain, the Commerce. She even enjoyed watching those daddy's little cuties spend far too much at little sophisticated and J. Crew on clothes that did far too little for them. Not, she reflected uncharitably, that they needed their clothes to do as much for them as I do. She imagined how she. Also, the she here is not written properly. How she will approach Rory. She will shyly reach out, the very model of an ingenue, which both of them will believe for the moment she was. She will seductively remove his glasses from his face. Should she speak? What is the male equivalent of "you're beautiful without your glasses"? No, just to act silently will be better. She will move simply, gently touch him her fingers, hinting of nails. I'll give you the suggestion of nails by gently touching you with my fingers. Okay. Karis, that solid torso, had a heartfelt coo about how strong he must be to tilt her head slightly, hinting at supplication. He shall see worship in her eyes. To slowly move her other hands to his Grecian formula temples, running the fingers. More nails this time. Through it. To exalt how impressive it is that his hair is still intact, while widening her grin to highlight her white stripes teeth. Fuck off! God damn it! Finally, there will be a slow, apparently natural motion of the hand from hair to removing the glasses. Is he nearsighted? His age hinted not. He will still be able to see her. She decided to proceed directly to moving the glasses slowly down to her side, rubbed them with her blouse as if cleaning them truthfully. Truly, forcing his eyes to travel down her body. Another tap of his fabulous torso, lingering this time with a comment about his not needing the Vaseline and oils of Estella.
Yeah, the oils of a Stallone.
Adrian! But yeah, White Stripes is supposed like to be like that kind of a thing you'd buy at drugstores or something, like a thing to whiten the teeth. Except it just, wow, what the fuck?
No, it's obviously means like their teeth, like the White Stripes, the band.
Wait, really? I thought that White Stripes was the name of a teeth whitener or something. I knew about
Usually
the
just called
band.
whitening strips. I think usually it's just called whitening strips.
Oh. It's time for me to widen my grin. Okay, now where the hell was I? She will notice lack of love handles while tilting her own torso to highlight her glorious 38 Ds. They were impressive, she knew. Even now, they were no longer supported by nature. Thank God for Howard Hughes. She mused. If he'd gone for those boy girls instead of Jane Russell, women's rights would have been set back 20 years. Can somebody confirm this? Yvonne pulled into the Tanger's outlet malls, reassuring herself that Rory will not track fashions intensely the way Richard does. She remembered the pivotal scene in some clothing movie where the blonde woman catches a man knowing fashion and realizes he's gay. I don't fucking... She could not for the 100th time consider Richard in those terms. Rejecting the possibility again for the 100th time, she tried to concentrate on Rory Edwards. She was distracted by the list of things she needed to buy. Clear from her scenario, there will be a tasteful shade of red nail polish, lip gloss, hand cream, moisturizer, tooth polish, and a flavored mouthwash. For the latter, she contemplated mint, but had a breakthrough with the idea of cinnamon, something to surprise him. But yeah, that's why, what the fuck is a clothing movie anyway? Just like, if I talk about the concept of a clothing movie, what movies will people bring to me? She considered a touch of dye, not that I needed, but gloried once again in her glowing auburn tresses. Her mother claimed she had inherited them from her grandmother. She decided a green hair clip, which will also highlight her eyes, will be sufficient. But the most important part was the outfit. If she was going to be real meat on his yacht, she will have to look the part, and nothing in her wardrobe was quite perfect yet. Yep. Remember, always try to be the real meat. It was a purple silk blouse from she had bought at Neiman Marcus, but she had worn it to a party of Callie's 3 years ago. She was afraid Rory had been there and would remember it. What the fuck cares? Oh my god. She was afraid. Okay. She couldn't remember him from that party, but had been during her enchantment by Calvin. And men claim only women are bewitching. She skirted past the Georgia Tech and UGA girls grabbing last year's halter tops and tube dresses for the upcoming summer. While she fancied that her body could still support a tube dress, she needed something more traditional for Rory. There was no point in emphasizing the difference in their ages. Trivial though she thought of it, she knew this quest well, given her natural proclivity toward men who could legitimately be considered late middle age, old enough to know better, but careful enough about their bodies to keep them in peak shape. This expedition required an outfit that would have been daring in his day, but will appear restrained among what's currently passed for fashion. Which means a bright green dress, the hair clip will have to be purple, fishnet stocking. Oh my goodness. And most importantly, a good fitting push-up bra. So it was to the bra shopping first. She wanted a nice lace, wondering if black would be too daring and rejecting red out of hand. Perhaps white would be safer, especially since the dress was likely to be a bit translucent. Selecting a bra, she thought, is one of those tasks that makes women wish for penis, a flat chest, or both? What?
Well, you know, psych.
Okay, if I have women in the audience right now, can you please, either confirm or disconfirm this?
Or how about we just move on?
No.
Psych,
I am.
what
in the fuck? The
hours
hours she had
you're
wasted.
not prepared.
The hours she had wasted in such the past few years, not to mention all those she expected to waste over the next several decades, were frightening. Not even two bras of supposedly the same size and make will fit well, or often even similarly. And two different labels were a sure sign that a 38D will be a 40E, will be a 36C. At this point, I'm just starting to think, wow, is it 36 degrees Celsius? Heaven help her when she realized that Calvin had been correct in saying that her left breast was smaller than her right. Bra shopping was like trying two pairs of shoes to make one pair. Still, whether it was life with Rory or there was some Mr. Right who followed him in her pantheon, this roundelay will not end. Even while her plan was still hatching and the glories of an anticipated seduction could still be savored, Yvonne suspected this would not be her last relationship. Exhausted before she began, she eschewed the legs Hannes Belly Playtex store for Claire's. Yvonne searched first for a new bra. She knew that Playtex might be the result of her search for something to signal a longer-term traditional women. The temptation of going strapless and backless in the world of A-cup, Wonder Bra, and plastic surgery for 54 years old was tempting, though. What are you fucking going on about, you drunk chapter? The result she finally found was worth the effort. Black lace top, solid white cups, support, comfortable sweat-absorbing interior, and a silk exterior for that first maneuver of his hand. Even that it had been made in China, where all of the women who worked on it probably did not measure to her own endowment.
Wow. Wow.
Oh, fuck you, Yvonne!
Wow.
Maybe you don't deserve this. Did not stop Yvonne from wondering at the marvel of modern American culture. What? Ah, the marvels of American culture. A bra made in China by people who sure don't know what the fuck they're doing. Am I right? It's like, fucking God. The bra found, she moved on to Elizabeth for dresses, glorying again that her flowing locks meant that she really had but two basic choices in color, green or purple, and the climate of Atlanta allowed either color to appear appropriate at least 10 months out of the year, setting herself off against the verdant landscape and the glories of the sunset, as if it were natural instead of planned down to the hour. She thought ruefully of the fashion disaster that would have come from living in Chicago, where Calvin now cohabited with his not even a handful trust fund bimbo. Who the fuck is Calvin? She considered the timing of her impending liaison and decided she should take a lavender sunset approach to the evening. A 7:30 meeting could be leveraged to its fullest. His view as she approached her outdoor table, fashionably late, will be of herself set off by the glowing yellow-red backdrop and highlighted by the verdancy of the surrounding deciduous tree. Okay, apparently Calvin was somebody earlier in the novel. I kind of forgot him. She decided this meant that her hair will have to be down and around her shoulder. Maybe a flower. Lilac? Daisy? Instead of a hair clip, will appear positively antebellum with a hint of knowing couture. A lavender Donna Karen with a neckline that did not plunge so much as gracefully hint. Well, it may have been intended to gracefully hint, but her pulchritude always more favored grace than hinting. What the fuck? God, I hate this chapter. It's like, this is really modern novel here. The whole kind of books where we will just set up situations where fucking nothing happened and... Okay, tapered at the waist to highlight the firm of her hips and derriere, ending slightly below the knee to show her calves off in good stead while hiding the scars from the skiing accident that had caused her to meet Calvin at that lodge in Vale selected. Yvonne left the store, wet with both the success of the expedition and the anticipation of the night to come. Oh my. Alright, chapter 17. Andrew Venice parked his car on the street in front of the house and double-checked the address yet. Wait. Hold on a minute. Okay, page 120. Okay.
Profit.
Hmm. Whoops. It- So, yeah, welcome to chapter 17. Remember chapter 4? Well, it's the same exact fucking thing. Like page 41, and now page 120.
Where am I?
Just what the
It's Groundhog Day. It's like reading the same book again.
Alright. There was nothing special about it, just plain. Nothing here looked like it might be connected to murder or assault or anything like that. Richard Isaac, the man he'd come to interview, was a stock manipulator, and you'd think he'd live in a fancier place, a nicer house on a better street. But since he also was a police informant, maybe he wanted to keep a low profile, not do anything to stand out. Not exactly like the witness protections program, but not all that different. Or maybe he just wasn't that good at manipulating stocks. Venice will try to find out, in addition to finding out what he really came here to ask about. He put the note on the front seat, and his sunglasses in the glove compartment, checking his reflection in the rearview mirror. It's smoothing back his hair. Turning 40 was hard. He didn't know what he had been planning to do at 40, but he was damn sure this wasn't it. Oh well. It's his job, and he was the one to do it. Better get going, ask his questions, make his report. Then he'd have plenty of time to stop by the gym later, work out a bit, fight off the ravages of time. He was still in his prime, even if he had to work harder to maintain it. Getting out of the car, he looked both ways, then shut the door and used a key fob to lock all the doors. Wasn't a bad neighbor or anything like that, but he still didn't want to take any chances. He let the minivan go past, then an SUV, then he walked around the front of his car and up the long sidewalk to the porch. A bench sat on the porch, the kind you might sit on and drink some lemonade, but it didn't look used, like nobody had any lemonade to drink there for a while, or maybe they just didn't like the porch or something. Isaac probably had to keep a low profile anyway. He wasn't the kind of guy who spent a lot of time outside making friends with the neighbor. Venice went to knock on the door and stop. There was a flyer lying on the welcome mat. No, it was one of those bags of advertisement they pay neighborhood kids to deliver. One of those circulars. There was a cardboard box full of them just off to the side of the door. Picked up the new one and held it in his hand as he knocked on the door with his knuckles. Loud enough so anyone inside could hear him, but not pounding or anything like that. Watching his reflection in the storm door, smoothing the lapels on his suit jacket so he'd be sure to look nice, the door opened. Richard Isaacs was the man who answered the door. He looked over Venice, wondering what this guy was at his door and what was he doing there. Venice got into his pocket and pulled out his wallet, flipped it open to show a hid badge. To a show hid badge. Oh my! Did they just take the same chapter but somehow put typos in it? Did they actually fucking do this? It just, oh my god. Hi. My name is Andrew Venice, he said cheerfully, like there was nothing unusual about him showing up there in the middle of the day. I'm here to ask you a few questions. It's no big deal. That was just what Venice wanted him to think, Isaac thought. Always said it was no big deal when they were trying to nail you. I found this lying outside your door, Andrew said. You want it? What was this guy trying to do, being friendly to him? No, just toss it there onto the circular file, Isaac pointed. Toss it into where? That box right there beside the door, he said, pointed to the box. He was getting mad. It's not a circle, it's more of a square, said Venus. Or a rectangle, maybe. It's a joke, all right? Now Isaac was getting really, really mad. I put the circulars in the circular file! But that crazy Venice guy just offered it again. You sure don't want it? They got good deals inside, could save you some money. Just throw it away. I wish the kid would stop delivering them. Hey, listen, said Venice, sticking his hands into his pocket. I don't have all day here. I'm on an investigation. I came to ask you some important questions, and I want some answers. I don't have to answer anything you ask, Richard Isaacs replied forcefully. He wanted to make a point. Are you going to stay out there on the porch and scare off all the neighbors, or are you going to come inside? I'll come inside and ask you my questions there. I want to ask you about Margaret Eastman. Isaacs knew he was going to be regretting this later, but he said, come on inside anyway. Even though he didn't want the guy inside. But what were you going to do? That's what they expected from you once you got messed up with the police. But he didn't have to play their game. Venice walked into the living room, not sure what to expect. Something about Isaacs didn't add up right. Either he was living in a plain house in this plain neighborhood because of frugality, because he was cheap, or there was some other reason. Couldn't figure Isaacs out, like there was something he was hiding. Even though Venice knew he was in his mid-60s, he looked more like a tough guy than a stock market expert. He had broad shoulders and a narrow waist, muscular. His cheeks were ruddy like he had spent a lot of time outside in the sun and the wind. Damn genetics. Some people didn't have to work for anything and had it all anyway. Didn't look like a guy who had just turned 40 and needed Viagra to get it up in him. I forgot about that fucking line. But Venice wasn't here to feel sorry for himself. Had a job to do. And it was time to do it. Isaac sat down in the brown reclining chair with a plop in front of the big screen TV and pointed to the couch. Why don't you sit down, he suggests, like a man who meant it? Venice wasn't going to let himself be pushed around that way by some informant. I think I'll stand. Let's just take a few minutes. So get started already! Isaac would be glad when this interview was over so he could watch his football game. You follow the Falcons at all? I'm not really a football fan, said Venice, although he split a pair of season tickets with his brother-in-law went to half the game. He looked at the TV for a second, trying to spot Bill in the crowd. Bill was married to his little sister, Leslie. He adored Leslie. Bill was a great guy, just the kind of guy he'd rather be spending the afternoon with. And he thought he sounded like some wuss for saying that, so he added, I think the West Coast offense really ought to open things up for Vic, though. They shall make the playoffs next year. Yeah, said Isaac passionately. He loved football. He didn't mind the damn questions now so much. Not if this Venice character liked the Falcon. So you wanted to ask me about somebody. Some Maury. Her name is Margaret Eastman, Venice said. His vein turned to ice at the mention of her name. Things like that shouldn't happen to a young woman like her. What? What are you even talking about? Who is she? Isaac asked. Yeah, who is she? The door to the kitchen slammed open, and in walked the most beautiful woman Venice had seen today, or maybe in a week. The more he looked at her, more he thought maybe in a lifetime. But he didn't have a whole lifetime of experience yet. But she was incredibly beautiful. Her eyes burst with curiosity, or maybe it was jealousy. She was older for a beautiful woman, maybe 40, maybe the exact same age as Venice. She was wearing a bra under her tight blouse, and she was wearing lipstick too. Couldn't help staring at her. Her hair was pretty too, like it was made out of silk, just that kind of shiny. Hey, Monica, we need some privacy to discuss a business, says Isaac. Just man talk, nothing you'd be interested in.
If it's another woman, you bet I'm interested,
she said, adjusting her breasts to make them stick out more. Venice was still staring at her. He couldn't take his eyes off her. She was looking at his eyes like she was touching herself for him, to be prettier for him. Couldn't believe it. I don't know who she is, Isaac says, and she was regretting inviting Venice into the house again. You sure you don't know anything about her? Venice asked. Monica stared at him with her lips making a little red pout.
If I knew anything about her, you can bet I'd let you know,
she said, slapping Isaac on top of his head.
How?
He said, grabbing the top of his head. He looked at Venice again and said,
I said I don't know her or anything about her.
She was the nurse at the hospital where Bruce Lucent recovered from his automobile accident, Venice said. She's really beautiful like you wouldn't believe. She has brown hair.
I know you like women with brown hair, you two-timing jerks.
Monica said. She was hitting Isaac on top of his head again, and he jumped up and yelled.
Stop at that! I said I don't know anything, and I don't know her!
I could show you pictures, Venice said. He had a lot of pictures of her, but he didn't want to share all of them. Not with this scum. It might help your memory. I might help your memory, son.
Listen, buddies, Isaac said. You came here, so you take what you get and leave. I said I don't know nothing. I don't know nothing. That's all that there is to it. Why don't you take me? Arrgh!
Monica purred at him.
Hey now, I don't like that, Isaac said.
And now he was mad at all of them for ruining his day. He was mad enough to hurt somebody. He'd killed a man before one time with his bare hands, and he could do it again if he put something in his bare hands, like a knife or a gun, or something that he could kill somebody with. Venice sensed trouble ahead, but he wanted to see more of Monica. He had the sense, though, that they were just ships passing in the night, that she was just some temporary liaison of Richard Isaac. Probably just another cheap tramp or something like all the others. Maybe she could be different, but wasn't going to be in this lifetime. Not with him. Well, if you don't know anything, I guess I'll be going. Walking down the sidewalk, the car waited for him at the curb. He stopped before opening the door and looked back up at the house. He saw Isaac standing up in the window frame, looking back at him. Somebody was hiding something there, but Venice knew he was a bulldog. He'd get to the bottom of it yet. And it didn't matter who got hurt along the way. He was going to find out the answers. Oh boy. Alright, yeah, that's right. Bare hands that use weapon. At this point, we're no longer talking about bare hands.
But bare hands.
Alright, chapter 18. Richard Isaac stood gazing out the window from the 32nd floor executive office. Atlanta at his feet. The streets were empty below, but for a few pedestrians dashing for cover beneath umbrellas. Everything was timing in this business. You couldn't make a killing when people are dying. Especially if you haven't planned for their deaths. What the fuck? Business thrive on stability and growth. For that stability, sometimes you had to play cutthroats. He heard the soft click as the door to the boardroom opened behind him. The man's broad shoulder and slim build made his silhouette against the window belly how close he was to retirement. As if you will retire in the middle of the biggest hand of your life, not when you're playing cutthroat. He turned. The sunlight slanting in there through the window shimmered from the obsidian tresses of Callie Archer. She glided into the room, perfect as always. She may have been wearing widow's black, but the swill of her breast, the shift of her hip against silk, assured him she wouldn't be alone for long. Not if he had anything to do with it. What the fuck? Stability. All of them needed to be in Richard Isaac's pocket if he was going to keep this ship on course. Archer Industries must thrive. He'd invested too much in what he knew about this company, the way it operated, and the under-the-table tricks Henry Archer had used to build it. Wait. What?
now he's working for Archer Industries, but before he was a police informant living in a shithole. What?
Reveals both.
All good products did not make a company great. Most of it was knowing how to manipulate money and power in the markets, to find the loopholes in the law, trade just a little closer to the inside than many might feel comfortable doing. And when the players get nervous, when they start worrying that their house of cards might fall, it was Richard who knew just where to leak the word to investigators to break up the game. And when the dust settled, Isaacs always walked away unscathed with obscene amounts of cash in his pocket and ever more power. It was Henry Archer who had taught Richard the game at which Richard excelled. Oh my god. Archer Industries had been poised to make the next great leap. Richard and Henry planned to bring in Isaac Stevens, a heavy if there ever was one in the corporate battleground, but he'd crossed Richard one too many times. The last when he'd forced his daughter Irene to end his relationship with Richard, right there, loudly, on the ground of the Polo Club before hundreds of Atlanta's most well-heeled citizens. Stevens will give Isaac the distance he needed when they started taking over the rival, company by company, and piecing them out, converting the stock options, doing the deal, raking in the dough, and if someone must fall, all along the plan had been to take Isaac down, while Archer Industries subsidiaries concealed the deal. Richard and Henry were too good at this game to fail. They'd only miscalculate once in their 30-year partnership. They hadn't expected Archer to drive off a cliff. A slight miscalculation.
Whoops!
Well, that wasn't
know?
planned. Ellie gave Isaacs a bear nod, a hint of a smile as she turned her back to him and walked along the bookcases that lined one wall. She ran her fingers along the spines, letting them linger on the masters, book that had never been cracked. Of course, Henry Archer was too important to be troubled with reading fiction, poetry, plays. But a wealthy man who had built his company from nothing needed a library, and he needed to surround himself with heart and the accoutrement that demonstrated he was a thinking man. But Henry's passion were the machinery of business, economics, and industry. Those were the well-thumbed books closest to the desk, and his passions had been serious as well. Invention, transportation, and keeping his wife content. The last mattered most to Kelly. She will be well cared for. Her prenuptial agreement assured her of that. But prestige, that was something a little harder to come by in this city. And with a background like hers, prestige came from marrying well. At last, she settled in the seat behind that massive, imposing desk from which Henry Archer ran his world. "You wanted to see me?" Callie asked him pointedly, one brow arched up, almost lost in a lock of hair that had drifted lower on her brow, like the question mark punctuating her sentence. "I know this is a difficult time for you, Miss Archer, but you must understand, the business of this company must move forward," Richard said brusquely. Bent over the desk toward her, his ruddy cheeks so close to her she could see his pores. She leaned back a little, then followed his glances that had so briefly touched on her breast before it moved to linger at her throat, in her hair, and at was pulled deep into her eyes. "Henry and I spoke at length about the direction the company needs to be competitive," Richard crooned as he gazed into her eye. "His company was a passion of his, you know, and I was about to help him double, triple its value. You need someone in place to make those decisions now that Henry can't."
Hi, Mr. Isaac. I'm so pleased to hear your confidence in me, she said demurely. Though he could see a devil lurking behind those eyes of hers. It kindled a flame, smoldering in her gaze. Of course, I haven't had much experience running Of course, I haven't had much experience running a company like Archer Industries. But sure, Henry will be pleased that it stayed in the family.
Richard leaned back. Was she playing him as he was trying to play her? What had fired up that spark in her eye? Was she planning to take over the company? Did she have the gall to do something like that? With effort, he pulled his gaze from her and strode to the window. What's your game, Miss Archer? He asked, staring over at Clanto, his voice barely raising a little with an unconcealed anger. You know you don't have the experience to run a company like this. Henry and I worked side by side for 30 years. Pounded one fist into his open other palm in rhythm to his word. We built this company together. I know what his plans were for growing the business, he said angrily.
So you think you should be running it?
Ellie asked with that disarmingly innocent gaze of her, the one that seemed to flash like the lightning playing across the rooftop of Atlanta, moving swiftly from chimney to gable until it reached its target with a burst of heat and smoke. That was Kelly Archer's gaze. Oh my God. I wouldn't presume to, Miss Archer, he enunciated somewhat crisply, turning from the window to lay a gentle hand on her shoulder. You are entitled as owner of the company to sit at its head, but Henry had planned for some time to bring in Isaac Stevens to coordinate some buyouts and sell-off. All of it tricky and confusing, and more than a grieving wife shall have to bear, he said in a tone Callie thought might be paternal, or condescending, or even genuinely caring. Did Richard Isaac even know how to grieve for Henry Archer? She wasn't sure. Even she could grieve a man who treated his wife like any of the other baubles he collected to build his image. Richard read the hesitation in her eyes and leaned in close over her shoulder. Let me guide you, Miss Archer. First, we bring on Stevens, as planned. Once he's installed, he'll begin buying up Archer's Industries competitor and dividing them up into existing divisions, then sell them off bit by bit, exercising option and building this company into the large cap company it ought to be. I don't think that's how it works. Did Richard Isaac and Henry Archer add their book of business from the coffee wars of Invisible War, or what? Okay. Turned there in the chair so that she faced him, the sunlight blinding on her dark waves of hair, the fire lit again in those eyes of hers, as her breasts rose in breaths that seemed to quicken beneath his gaze. Think of it, Miss Archer. Kelly, think of it, he exclaimed. You can carry on your life as you will always have, leaving the tedious business dealings to me. But the powers will be yours. You will be Archer Industries. It'll be your books that line the walls, your charity events in the news, your parties the town will be talking about. Who knows, you may even find love again. I imagine a woman of your uncommon beauty and mean will never need to be alone. Alone. As if Kelly didn't already know alone. And then she survived 10 years as the bauble of Henry Archer. Kelly Archer rose from her chair, faced Richard squarely, then turned on her heel. She again glided through the room, touching a sculpture there, a painting there, at last coming to the broad mahogany doors out of her office. Her office. She turned. Isaac's was again a black silhouette against a blazing sunset, fiery red, as if he were some demon standing at the open gates to hell. The entire boardroom had taken on the devilish glow. She swept open the door.
I imagine I'll be meeting Mr. Stevens before I have the opportunity to hire him,
she inquired. He swept toward her, his silhouette resolving into a well-built man, only slightly older than Henry's 60 years. Wait, hold on. Oh, no. Okay, no. His face quickly fading from the silhouette of a dark demon to a ruddy-cheeked imp who looked like he'd be at home on the soccer field. What? I've never heard of that metaphor where imps belong on soccer fields. Oh, yeah, what the hell? If that's your wish, he offered deferentially.
It is,
She said, catching her breath. Something about him made her heart pound, as if she agreed to work in a league with the devil himself. It's time for it to be after me, isn't it? She thought to herself. Then you will meet him, he said forcefully. We have an agreement then. You accept my counsel? Thrust out his hand. She took it in both of hers and leaned toward him, tilting her head to look him in the eye, her breast jostling within the black satin dress she wore.
I look forward to working with you.
Again, she gave him that glinting glance, an almost wicked smile playing across her lips. What was her game? Okay, where are we going at? Okay, so I guess, well, first of all, a drink? And chapter 19. Archer and Nance looked around the country club parking lot, crowded with cars, minivan, and SUVs old and new, battered and gleaming, cheap and priceless. Oh yeah, the priceless SUV. Squinting into the late afternoon sun, the car reflected the red tinged light of windshields and bumper and mirror and doorknobs like a pack of bicyclists caught in a searchlight late at night on a deserted road. God, I love these phrases. Well, Jason, he said impatiently, do you recognize any of them?
No, Dr. Nance,
answered his nerdy young assistant with the pocket protector and horn-rimmed glasses that he seemed to wear as a badge of honor.
But I'm not a big car guy, you know that, and I haven't got all the cars in there yet anyway.
He waved a sleek brush chrome compact eye pack. What are you fucking... And Archer and Nance's face, as if Archer could see that it was so light that he couldn't have any cars in there yet. Well, you'll have to work on that, because I really hate it when I have to leave a place I wouldn't have gone into if I'd known whose car was parked out front. Okay? Start on it tomorrow. Has it done by the Miller's pool party on Saturday?
Okay, Dr. Nance, will do. Want me to go inside now?
Yeah, you do that, Jason. Wish he could smoke a cigarette while he waited for Jason to return, but the gravel-top parking lot was just too public a place for one of Atlanta's top doctor to light up and hurt his image, which was of a trim, muscular, athletic medical genius who played a main game of racquetball with a golf disability or two. What?
Oh, you know.
Is that supposed to be flattering? I don't think it is. He'd just have to wait until he got home, assuming he went home alone, which he rather doubted because so many women wanted him. What with his near-perfect body, huge mansion, and astronomical salary, that he almost never went home alone unless he felt like it. Behind his back, stiletto heels click, but not sharply and intensely like they will on wood or marble. Rather with a little sogginess to them, a sort of muffled slurping caused by their impacting asphalt that had gone soft and resilient in the hot Atlanta sun. He liked stiletto heels a lot, so he turned to see what was coming. It was Callie Archer, old Henry's widow, God, she was a looker, with those glossy black tresses and fine ooters. Fuck off! Die in a fucking sea of shit, Doctor. Dr. Fuckface. She smiled and came toward him. Even though she was about 40, she still had an ass to die for, although he was more of a legged footman himself, which is why he preferred stiletto heels to pumps or running shoes. "Hello, Archer," she said saucily, laying a perfectly manicured hand on his arm in a way that promised interesting things to come. "Is Jason making sure it's safe for you to go in?" "Yes," he exclaimed, studying the smooth white fingers tipped with crimson and filed to glossy perfection. "Yes, he is." He laughed because it was a joke between them, even though when you came right down to it, it didn't much amuse him when he wasn't with Callie. Archer and Nance had a very poor memory for faces, especially women's faces, because he almost never looked at their faces. Especially if they were wearing open-toe shoes with stiletto heel and had bright red polish on their toenail, like Kelly was. He had a fantastic memory for bare boobs and naked apses. This chapter is currently punching me in the face. Of course, but those weren't likely to be on display in the country club's party room, at least not so early in the evening. In fact, the only reason he recognized Callie was she'd been his patient for going on 20 years now, and after 20 years, it's hard not to recognize somebody, unless the light's bad or they've got a new haircut or something. The only reason to not recognize somebody after 20 years. A haircut or light.
Oh, you know.
So wherever he went, he took his assistant Jason with him, because Jason not only had a photographic memory, he liked to look at women's faces. And besides, he had all their pictures in his Palm Pilot anyway, just in case. What the fuck?
You know, Palm Pilot. Don't you remember those? Those
Uh,
horrible things.
Just like, I kind of have a slight memory, but it's one of those things that kind of disappeared with time really fast.
Yep. Don't have money for a fucking Palm Pilot. It's stupid.
Yeah. Pretty sure that back in the time... Oh, yeah. Back in the time, I had fucking nothing. So, is this actually old, or is the writing purposefully dated? That came out in 2004. Okay. Callie squeezed his forearm and leaned so close to him that her big breast brushed his bicep. "How many are you up to now, Harty?" she demanded. 14, I think. Maybe 15. Don't call me Harty in public, okay? It diminishes the authority a doctor needs to do his job right. "But I can call you Artie when we're alone together and I'm kneeling in your feet and your pants are down around your ankles, can't I?" Her eyes flashed dangerously. "Because if I can't, then maybe I'll have to wash my hair on Friday night instead of on Saturday morning, if you know what I mean." "Oh, shucks, Kelly. Sure, you can call me that. When we're somebody nobody can hear us. Just, when we're somewhere with lots of people." His voice trailed off as he waved his free hand at the empty parking lot. "That's good, Artie." She patted his hand. "Shall we go in together?" As soon as Jason... Oh, there he is. The nerdy young assistant stood before them, his eyes fixed on Callie's beautiful cheekbone. "Okay, Dr. Nance, it's safe. There's not some singles woman in there with a restraining order against you." What?
Yeah, you don't want that, like, don't you? No.
I don't have an assistant to scout places to tell that there's single women with restraining orders. What the fuck? "You're sure?" he inquired,
Last 30s at the gaties.
Yeah, I feel bad about that. But who would have expected Melissa Kriegel to be in a bedroom with somebody so early in the party? Melissa?
Asked Callie indulgently. Was she with Walter? No, Dorothy.
Oh,
She said, and put more meaning onto that one single unbroken syllable than an entire stack of a psychology textbook. Well then, if the coast is clear, let's go in. Are you coming, Jason? He blushed at the question and shook his head from side to side.
no, Dr. Lance likes me to wait out front so that if anybody on the list shows up, I can warn him before they get within 50 feet of him.
Archer nodded. Those 50 feet were important. He spent a whole night in a country lockup once because he thought 50, 40, what's the difference? 10 feet, the cop had told him belligerently, had taken his belt and Sorry, hiccups. Had they taken his belt and shoelaces and neckties and fingerprints, tucked Callie's right hand under his left arm and led her inside. It was noisy. The kind of noisy that only happening when when you stuff 100 people in a room built for 75, give them all a couple of high-powered drink, and let the band crank its amps to max. The air conditioner were probably raising a ruckus too, but who could hear them over the roar of the crowd? From the far side of the room, Isaac Stevens raised an hand to Archer and picked his way through the press of humanity to him, pulling a beautiful young woman along with him by the hand. Archer, he said softly, just the man I've been looking for. He crossed the last 10 feet and thrust out his hand. Hello, Callie.
Hello, Isaac.
She responded sedately, but her grip tightened on Archer's forearm. Archer, he said, and his speech was a little slurred, so it was as clear as the vodka in his glass that this wasn't his first drink of the night, or even his fifth. What? Oh my God. You know my daughter Irene, don't you? Yes, of course, he said at once, inwardly glad that Isaac had told her who she was, because he hadn't really recognized her, not in this setting or that skin-tight emerald cocktail gown cut so low that it made a man want to punch his fist at the sky and shout, "Wee-haw!" After all, the last time he'd seen she was in a dimly lit restaurant on Peach Street, sitting in a booth at the back with Henry Archer so close that it was hard to tell where one began and the other left up. Her right hand under the table, but apparently in Henry's lap from the contented yet anticipatory gleam in whole Henry's gull high. "And Callie," said Isaac, his expression simmering, "I do believe I haven't seen you since the funeral. You're looking lovely tonight, my dear, as you always do, whatever the circumstances. May I present my daughter, Irene? Irene, this is Miss Archer, whose husband Henry died recently." Callie extended her hand to the blonde young thing and murmured, "It's a pleasure to meet your acquaintance." Irene took a deep breath, some breath that made her large breasts look as though an anti-gravity beam had just rippled through Okay, alright, here's my challenge. I have to read this phrase without cracking up. Irene took a deep breath, some breath that made her large breasts to the white.
Bam! Ruined. It's over.
Irene took a deep breath, some breath that made her large breasts look as though an anti-gravity beam. No, we're moving on. I cannot do this. And then took Callie's hand. "It's very nice to meet you, Miss Archer."
Oh, it's very nice to meet you, Miss Archer. I'm sorry to hear about your husband. Why, that's very kind of you.
she riposted. Watching all this, Archer Nance quirked an eyebrow, but so inconspicuously that no one but he could see. Very interesting, he thought to himself.
A fucking slug lady from Monsters Inc. is here now.
Yeah, why not? Old Henry's widow and old Henry's bereaved mistress, pretending not to know each other, when to Archer's certain knowledge, the two had, on more than one occasion, shared the same bed in order to pleasure the old man and make sure he never developed eyes for anyone else. Yes, very interesting, he thought to himself. I wonder what's raising. Beside that, has he subtly adjusted his trousers?
Oh ho ho.
Hold on, I'm just gonna check out how it. Oh. Alright, chapter 20. Oh, alright. LPH is asking if Festival can read a chapter. I mean, it's your choice whether you want to read it.
Yes.
Alright, so now we're currently at page 140 for chapter 20.
Chapter 20. As Yvonne Perrin climbed the stairs to Roy Edwards' penthouse, she could not shake the ominous feeling of dreadful fear that dampened her day. It was a beautiful day in Atlanta, Georgia, fair to partly cloudy, with temperatures in the lows 80s, dropping to 60 around midnight.
Thank
It
you,
was a type
weather
of day Yvonne
format.
usually found to make her feel like a child again, but it was not to be that way today, as cruel fate would have it. Roy's penthouse was on Peachtree Street in Atlanta, Georgia. Roy often wondered how he would afford it, secretly afraid that his job might not be as secure as he was led to believe. Just the other day, Mr. Ricketts, his boss, had called him on the carpet to read him the riot act over the problem with the Zimmerman telegram. The what now?
What? Yeah, what's a riot act?
No, the Zimmerman telegram. Okay, moving on. This made him feel bad, but Roy never told anyone this. So Yvonne had not known of his fears, but he appreciated her
but
visits.
somehow she actually knows.
But he appreciates her visits. And today Yvonne was bringing him a box of donuts wrapped in bright red plastic wraps that reminded her of the day she boiled the eggs, even though she knew Roy wouldn't be there to appreciate it. Boil the eggs.
Yeah, boil the eggs. Yum, yum, yum.
Rory's door was open when Yvonne Perrin got to the top of the stairs that were unusual. It was a large wooden door, usually painted white, that Rory bought at an estate sale in Milledgeville, Georgia, the capital of the state where the Civil War and General William Tecumseh Sherman's famous march to Georgia during the Civil War burned the city to the ground. Both cities, actually, hit the door at 3 hinges and the door up. While the door knocker in the shape of a horseshoe that didn't work. It was a real find, and Roy often regretted the fact that he never gotten it properly appraised by a licensed appraiser. It was one of Roy's biggest regrets, eating at him like a monster devouring his soul, and spitting out the remnants of his shoes and little bits of leather and oil.
But he said it was a real find.
Yvonne went inside Roy's Edward penthouse. It was decorated with yellow walls, with an 8x10 color glossy photos of Roy's pet dog Barky on the one with the walls. The dog was a champion show dog, winner of many gold medals, but had to be put down after. Roy had never gotten over it, sobbing uncontrollably whenever he ate at Burger King. Burger King.
Burger King.
Burger King. Better King. The picture window faced east, overlooking the river, the thin blue ribbon in the distance. Yvonne and Rory loved to hold their hands and watch the sun setting, especially in winter, when the average high temperature was only 53 degrees. There was a smell in the air that Yvonne couldn't identify. Callie Archer suddenly entered. She was only wearing a bathrobe, naked underneath. Yvonne was shocked and startled. What was Callie doing here? Callie was wondering the same thing. What she was doing there.
Also, thank you, Carmen94, for the bits.
What are you doing here? She demanded. Callie didn't know what was going on. I had not expected you today, Yvonne. He commented cattily. Never mind that, Yvonne exclaimed. Where's your husband, Bruce? Well, you know, Callie cried hesitantly, her long, glossy black hair hanging in front of her face. She hated when that happened and slid it aside. Yvonne was confused. This was impossible. Would you like some donuts? She offered, holding the bag. Do you have any chocolate? Callie asked. I think they were out. Yvonne barely, opening the box. There was a dozen. 3 jelly, 4 glaze, 2 strawberry frosties, 3 peanut butter, Yvonne's favorite, a coconut glaze. Would you like a cream filled? Callie pounded the table. Damn! She curses. Why does everything happen to me? She exclaimed. She dropped her robe on the floor. I never get a break. She hissed. Yvonne felt really badly. She had known Callie for years. Since the summer of '91, when a cloud the shape of a ball of dust opened the sky to the heavens and turned her life into one big fun time. It was late in the evening and Callie was wearing a bright green skirt and matching red top with pink lace at the neck and sleeves. It was a slight paisley pattern. It caught the sun. It was before Bruce's accident. Though he would never say so, Rory Edwards thought she was the most beautiful woman he'd seen. He often wished that Callie wasn't married, or that Bruce was dead or something. The night was magical, and the band played disco into the night. Are you doing something with Rory? She asked, deciding to take the bull by the horns and get to the root of the situation and let the chips fall as they may. I refuse to answer that, Callie said pig-headedly. I don't have to answer that. Well, this is a fine how you do. After all we've done together, you all won't tell me what you're doing, she cried loudly. Oh, for the crying out loud, Yvonne. Callie shouted back like a bellowing mule. What do you think? What does it look like? Is Rory here? Yvonne sobbed. He left, Callie informed her. She went to the refrigerator and opened a can of Diet Pepsi. He couldn't perform. Yes, agreed Yvonne. He often has that problem. What? Wow.
What the fuck?
What? You too? Callie blurted. This was a big surprise. What in the world was Callie thinking? Rory was always afraid this could happen. Despite his macho exterior, he was a bundle of fears inside. An writhing masses of phobias that made him tremble in nervousness. If he knew that the 2 girls were saying about him right now, his ears would probably burn red hot, or hotter. Callie sat in the red leather couch that Rory had picked up on sale in Sears at the Peachtree Mall. She suddenly felt like a fool. How could she have not guessed? The signs were all there. The skim milk of 2%. The sun changed Rory's manner. This time he spent working at the office. Pepsi? Offered Yvonne, sensing her pain and offering her can. And she had her share of bad love affairs.
Yeah, she had
like the handsome doctor with the office in Peachtree Street. What the hell's with Peachtree?
I don't
Who
know.
dumped her
That
when she
book loves that one street.
Who dumped her when she had hinted that she wanted more from the relationship than donuts? Suddenly, the box of donuts oppressed her. She wanted to drown in her rich, creamy taste, become forgotten in their sweet crunch that reminded her of the death of Archie.
What?
So,
The donuts reminded her of the fucking dead dogs.
the death of Archer. Archie.
Oh.
It was worse with the weightlifter. Callie took the peace offering gratefully. I'm not a bad person, she pointed out, drawing her robe around her. I'm just cursed. Suddenly, there was someone at the door. Callie could tell by the sound of the corduroys that it was her husband. the sound of the corduroys.
Why is he here?
The sound of the corduroys.
Oh my god.
What a predicament. If Bruce found out about this, it's being all over. What should we do? Fretted Callie, her eyes beseeching her longtime friend. It was a scary situation. Callie didn't want Bruce to know, but after the accident, he had become different. Yvonne, but I need your help, she begged. Yvonne felt sorry for her friend Callie, who had such beautiful, glossy black hair. Rory called Bruce, lisping slightly. Have you seen my hard drive? I'm a software developer, you know. We need to do something, Callie whispered. Bruce does not know about Rory. It was scary. If Bruce found out, there was no telling what he might do. He was insanely jealous, given to furious rages at the drop of a hat. What should we do? Callie asked. We need to do something. Yvonne thought about it. The needed to do something. But what could they do? Bruce hadn't been the same since the accident. It was all so hopeless. Yvonne could have known better than to bring donuts. Bruce was sure to blame her. Suddenly, she had an idea. Go to the bedroom, urged Callie. I have an idea. An idea? Asked Callie. She had ideas of her own. Dreams of beautiful winter nights in Tallahassee, Georgia, watching the ships come in from the sea, with a handsome man by her side, his strong, many arms manishly comforting her with his male strength. she dreamed the idea many nights, but when she woke up, the arms were gone, and she was in the stone cold bed with no joy except for her tropical fish, dead all these many years. I should go into the bedroom, Callie opined. She picked the robe up off the floor and did so. This had better work, Yvonne muttered as she opened the door that would mean a matter of life or death.
Of course, the next chapter has fucking nothing to do with all of this. Also, by the way, chapter 22. Because now we went from chapter 20 to 22. Alright. Atlanta was a hot city that day, and the air conditioner was dribbling and leaving a pool on the floor. Too bad he wasn't helping to keep the station house cool. I hate summer in Atlanta, Andrew Venice thought. He'd give anything to be hanging around up north, somewhere, anywhere, so long as it wasn't 90 degrees in the shade and full of concrete. He had halfway convinced himself to go down to the cantina and get a cold tall one when someone shouted at him, "Hey, Handy, you got a visitor!" Andrew raised his bleary eye from the mass of papers on his desk. It had been a long day, and in spite of all his effort to dig up everything he could on this case, he was still no closer to figuring out who had killed Henry Archer than he had been when they found Archer. But did he die in a car accident?
Yeah, he drove off a cliff. No, surely he survived that. It was killed some other way.
The scattering of evidence wasn't producing any clue that he could use. Suffice to say, he was not a happy camper. Just now, and it was playing Old Harry with his temper. The last thing he wanted was a visitor. Probably some wino coming in to report seeing pink elephants in the alleyway of Atlanta. The city was full of crazy drunks, and most of them ended up at the police station at one time or the other. Of course, being a detective, Andrew didn't usually have to put him with them. The desk officer at the door was usually the one who was inundated with drunks and floozies and every other wacko in the street. I'm just a murder guy. Who is it, Sergeant? Andrew growled. He hated interruptions, especially when he had not had enough sleep. He'd been up all night staring at the photos of Archer's body. It had been too hot to go to sleep last night. Even sleeping in his underwear had not been comfortable. He would have stripped naked, but old Lady Carson in the flat across the way was already on her last pacemaker.
Don't you know? She just has multiple pacemakers. Just open up her chest and just add another one, you know.
Yeah. Oh,
Clearly,
no.
you've never had a
my
pacemaker
heart,
before.
quick, I must find another pacemaker. Okay, whew. No use in giving the whole girl a kick-off before her time, though she would have gone with a smile on her prudent face. The sergeant merely stepped aside, pulling his police hat off his head and holding it in both hands. Cheek had a sort of apple glow. He turned his eyes to look just down the hall, and he smiled. Well, Andrew barked. A woman with a head full of hair as red as a roaring fire stepped through the doorway. She had green eyes like the rich emerald in a princess crown, and they settled on Andrew the way a fox look at a chicken that's straight from the henhouse. Hungry but hesitant and wary in case there was a dog nearby. What in the fuck? He puffed his chest and stood up, enjoying the way her eyes rode up and down his well-built frame. Clearly, he appreciated how well set up he was. In turn, he stared unabashed at her voluptuous figure clad in a short-tight black leather skirt and pink frilly blouse open nearly to the navel. What? He put her about 35, though she might have been able to pass for younger.
Hi there,
She said in her thick southern drawl.
are you Andrew Venice?
She asked. I might be. Was asking. She sauntered into the room, walked over to the chair before his desk and seated herself demurely without even being asked. The angle gave Andrew a better look at her cleavage. He was starting to feel warm.
My name is Yvonne Perrin, and I'm a friend of Yvonne Callie Archer.
Kelly Archer? Henry Archer's wife? Andrew dropped into his chair and started pushing papers aside in search for the report of Kelly Archer.
Widow, actually.
Even smiled. And Andrew knew that she was too hot of a woman to be handling in the summer. Those green eyes were starting to mesmerize him. He cleared his throat roughly. So, what can I do for you? Venice said, trying to keep his mind off his work.
Well, you see, I heard on the TV that the police were asking that if anyone knew anything about the Archer case to please come forward.
She pushed a hand through her thick red tresses, brushing them out of her green eyes.
So I thought I should come forward and tell you what I know.
And just what do you know? Andrew asked. For a moment, Yvonne glanced over her shoulder. She looked back at him and leaned so she was braced on the far side of his neck.
I'm not the sort of girl who rats on her friend, mind you. Callie and I go a few years. She's always been a big sister for me, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know, Archer said.
And you probably think I'm terrible for telling you this.
She looked at her hand. I make that decision after you tell me. Wait, Archer said? Oh, whoops, okay. What?
He's here. He's manifested.
Yeah, what the fuck? Why did Henry Archer suddenly appear?
Well, as I said, Callie and I go back away to when she was Callie Lucent, before she married Andrew.
What? What?
But then she married Bruce after Henry died.
What?
She tells me everything, well, almost everything. Anyway, I knew her older brother Bruce too. He's over at the hospital right now recovering from an automobile accident. I thought I would drop in and visit him just to make him feel better. Callie said he was sort of blue, but he was asleep when I got there and I didn't want to wake him up, but I didn't know what to do.
I was going to leave when I decided to use that little bathroom in his room, and while I was there, I heard people coming out into the room. I was going to call out and let them know I was here, but I heard Callie, and I heard Dr. Nance. Dr. Nance. Archer Nance. Yvonne waved her hand around in the air as though shooing flies. He's some big-time doctor over there. Anyway, I heard Callie say, is he still asleep? And Dr. Nance said, oh yeah, he's going to be out for a while. She paused. And? Wait. Okay, Andrew insisted. At this point, I'm just confused as to what I even read.
It got quiet, and I opened the door, and Callie was kissing Dr. Nance like it was an old flame.
Andrew frowned. What did you do?
Well, I didn't want them to know I was here, and that I heard them and saw them, so I sort of slipped out of the room and left.
What? Didn't you hide in the fucking closet?
The bathroom, you know?
Yeah, hold on a bit. Yeah, just... Oh my god. Okay, I actually completely missed this. So... Yeah, hold on a bit. I think I need to go vomit for a second. Just like,
hey, I'm gonna marry my brother, yeah! Just like we do in the South.
Alright. Was that wrong of me? I just didn't want to embarrass them. Just like that? Andrew asked. Didn't see you leave? Yvonne shook her head so the cascade of red hair shimmered like flames in the fireplace. God, you wish it was winter. I was real quiet, she said. Anyway, that's what I know. It's what I saw. And just why are you telling me this now? Because it was back before Henry died, and it made me wonder if he knew Callie might actually be having an affair with the doctor who was looking after her older brother. Andrew sighed. Well, I want to thank you for coming in and telling me this, he said as he stood up. Yvonne pulled herself out of the chair and nodded. Thanks for letting me tell you, she said. It's a load off my mind, I can sure tell you. If you think of anything else, Andrew said, give me a call. I will, she said and smiled. Bye now. She sauntered back out of the office just as Sargent was returning. Wait, his name is just Sargent. Pulled off his hat again and nodded to her as she passed. Took his hat and started to fan himself while smiling at Andrew. Now, that's what I call one hot little lady, the sergeant said. I wish I was a few years younger, I do. Are you gonna ask her out? Don't be ridiculous, Andrew snarled and motioned the sergeant to leave. Still grinning like a hyena, the sergeant wandered away. Andrew sat down and started staring at his paper. So Andrew Nance and Kelly Archer have a past, Andrew muttered. That was something to ponder.
And now we're to chapter 23.
Yep.
Irene Stevens nibbled at her sauteed crab cake. It was nestled in a mild golden curry sauce and garnished with micro basil, and gazed at Bruce Lucent, who was sitting at the head of a 42-seat table with his wife. A positively ancient Kelly Archer with her glossy raven hair that had to be Miss Clairol, or Irene was in reigning Georgia Peach Princess for 2003, and her gravity-defying 38 double D boob. Bruce.
Okay, I don't know. I don't know about measurements, but is that a real thing?
Well, there's that. Yes.
Okay.
Bruce, who had the studliest body ever, but a face like a turnip, round and a little purple around the bottom where his skin was still recovering from the laser peel to get rid of those nasty acne scars, was in the midst of a long, boring presentation about his newest software package, Loose Lips. An interactive speech recognition program that would do everything from read your morning newspaper to book your lunch
reservation.
At this point in the long presentation, too long as far as Irene was concerned, Chef Joel himself clapped his hand to his mouth in amazement. You mean a computer reserved my special cellar room for this function? The handsome and dashing chef gasped, smiling broadly, and everyone set down their salad forks and applauded with appropriate little oohs and ahs and titters of appreciation. It was enough to make a girl gag. How's the crab cake? Roy Edwards asked. Roy Edwards, 60, but he didn't look a day over 40, not with the absolute hard body. It was Irene's best, and at the moment only, friend in the whole sunny state of Georgia. She just didn't understand why other girls didn't like her. All the men she met did. In answer, Irene popped a bite of the crab cake into her mouth and gave a little shivering moan of ecstasy. The little shiver made her ample bosom quiver on an even larger scale, causing the computer geek across from her to nearly poke himself in the cheek with his fork. Now there was a man who could stand some buzzing with a laser. That unibrow simply had to go, and that tattoo, Unix rules, was just too icky for words. Especially on his neck. Imagine having to look at that every day of your life.
Yeah, also, hold on a bit. I just have to go back in time just a little bit. Rory Edwards, 60, was Irene's best and at the moment only friend in the whole sunny state of Georgia. She just didn't understand why other girls didn't like her. All the men she met did, but Rory's a guy, so at this point, why is Rory's only friend?
No, Roy Edwards was Irene's best and only friend, you know?
I guess.
It's delish, Irene simpered. Thanks so much for bringing me, Roar. Rory Edwards' tan cheeks turned pink in response to her use of her pet name for him, Roar, and he took off his spectacles and polished them feverishly, something he always did, Irene noticed archly, whenever she paid him a compliment. He looked pretty darn good for 60, thought Irene. She always thought golf was even bigger bored than computers, but Rory Edwards' living proof positive the sport had something going for it. Either that or Rory is sinking his considerable fortune into liposuction and facelifts.
What does this got to do with golf?
Because he golfs, I guess.
Face golf, the definite alternative to liposuction and facelift.
Bruce Lucent aimed the laser pointer he was holding at a giant screen and said, "Next slide, please," in his slightly boyish, but not in a bad kind of way, voice. But instead of the silver and black Lucent banner, an error screen popped up. At the same moment, a woman's sultry voice issued from the speaker. "Oh, Bruce, darling, I'm afraid something's gone terribly wrong." The raven-haired beauty sitting beside Bruce made a wide-eyed moo of astonishment and shook her magnificent mane of raven hair. "Why, Bruce, darling," she cried, smiling widely, her teeth like snowy chickens and her lips like glossy red satin pillows, and pointed to the computer to make sure that even the dumbest of the dumb got the joke. "That's my voice."
Oh.
Irene stifled the urge to roll her eyes and stick her finger down her throat and pantomime a person throwing up. Oh, as if, she thought. How could any of this be any more fake? Bruce cleared his throat and frowned at mock displeasure. He tipped his head on one side, stroked his rugged chin with his long fingers that looked as if they really knew how to pleasure a woman, Irene thought dreamily. She squirmed a little in her chair, entertaining racy fancies about what she liked to do that was steadily bodily like Bruce Lucent's. Bruce opened his voice to give a command. Before Bruce could speak, a computer voice that was exactly the same as Callie Lucent's voice asked in a husky drawl that sounded like she's been positively gargling straight tequila. "What can I do to make it up to you?" it sounded. Irene thought with uncharacteristically lack of charity, as this was Callie Lucent's computer voice that was asking if Bruce wanted a blowjob. Stabbing ferociously at her crab cake, Irene pretended for a moment that the golden sauce crustacean cake was Callie's face, her oh-so-perfect Baptist face, clear of wrinkles, clear of unsightly hairs, clear of pimples. The arrogant woman. Irene's hand crept to her chin, so surreptitiously fondled the hard red zit that was swelling under her creamy skin. It was the kind of zit that hovered under the surface for days, not really showing, but feeling if you touched, which Irene did about a zillion times a day, to see whether it was forming a head or not. Sometimes Irene hated a mere 22, even if it did mean she would go braless. Without worrying, she looked like she was carrying two droopy water balloons under her trendy Donna Kareem tank top. She had firm, upright breasts. This left just a teensy tiny bigger than the first. Something her doctor told her not to worry about. It has made them more kissable, he assured her as he pleasured her atop the examining table, her feet in the stirrups, his hand over her mouth to stop her unstoppable cries of ecstasy. Irene's nostrils flared with delicate disdain as she glared at Callie Arch's ample bosom. They're changing her freaking last name a lot.
Yeah, just like it goes from Archer to just Lucent and whatever other name. She changes husbands.
There was a more silicon floating in that woman's chest than there was in the laptop computer Bruce Lucent was showing off this very minute to the two men at the table. Jesus Christ.
Oh my god.
Irene wondered momentarily who they were, as if they were well-to-do as Bruce. One of them, Irene could tell she was a computer geek in the fact that she was a computer in the fact that he was wearing a Star Trek t-shirt under his sports jacket. A jacket so old and tatty it had shiny elbows, and a blue jeans from Gap.
What?
There was even a plastic strip running down the leg that said 38, 38, 38, 38, all the way down his calf. Was engrossed in whatever was on the screen. The other, a young red-headed man with ginger freckles and a studly body but a really ugly face and the worst teeth Irene has ever seen on a man, was oogling the 5 or 6 acres of cleavage Callie Lucent was displaying. Irene sniffed. that any other woman over 40 would dare wear a Betsy Johnson, especially the high-end upper-class place like Joel's. Positively reeking of good taste, was just unthinkable. All she needed to complete the ensemble, Irene thought, with uncharacteristic sarcasm, was a pair of castanets and a guitar player shouting "Ole!" That made her smile, and she dabbed her glossy lips delicately over with her napkin. Good thing she remembered to use her new Clinique Stay the Day lipstick. Before once more putting her attention back on her crab cake, swirling a forkful in the middle of golden curry sauce, she took a bite. It was really scrumptious. But if she ate the whole thing, but the pot de chocolat served with creme fraiche sorbet and a rolled sugar wafer cookie she'd been eyeing on the menu, or maybe the delicious sounding creme caramel with honey vanilla ice cream and a sweet almond wafer cookie. They both sounded so good. And a couple more glasses of positively yummy 1999 Marchinet Rosé from Domaine B. Claire in Burgundy, France. She'd either have to skip dinner tonight or march right into the washroom and throw it up. Suddenly, just like he was right there across the table from her, his laugh lay as deep as the Grand Canyons and his merry eyes twinkling like stars. Irene could hear her dearly departed and oh so deeply missed dead lover Harry Archer's gruff down-home rumble. If y'all are just gonna up-huck in the second y'all finish eating it, Rainy Bean, what's the gold dang point of spending this kind of cash on lunch? Her china blue eyes welled with tears. Oh, Daddy Hank, she thought. He really wasn't really like her real daddy, but since he's been so much older than she was and took care of her better than her real daddy ever did, never hitting her, except when they played Spanky Pants, never forcing her to do anything she didn't honestly truly want to, except when they played Oh Sweet Jesus Christ.
What?
Rape me till I squeal.
No! No! What the fuck?
Putting that aside, or maybe sometimes when they played Good Till the Last Drop, which really wasn't her favorite game, to tell the honest truth, and never, ever calling her horrible, cruel names like Daddy's Little Blow-Up Dolly. Ugh.
What the fuck?
How could you leave me like that, my sweet Daddy Hank, without even saying goodbye to your darling Rennie Bean? It had been 6 months, but not a day went by that she didn't miss her darling daddy. It was, in fact, why she was sitting here in Swanky Joel's restaurant. Today was her first anniversary.
So yeah, just in order to, remind people of stuff, PublishAmerica had this manuscript, and they thought, okay, let's publish this. Just so that, you needed more proof they did not fucking bother reading this. Alright.
Well, it would have been their first anniversary, that is, if Henry Archer had been so tragically killed in a tragic car accident out on the parkway. Could it really be 6 months since he had been killed so tragically? It seemed like only yesterday they were snuggling on his big, round, king-size bed, or kissing his kidney-shaped pool, or just holding hands like a pair of giddy freshmen away at college.
Okay, and apparently what makes this chapter even greater is that a woman wrote this chapter, by the way.
Hard to believe, but I guess this is where we are.
That's how you can recognize true talent here.
That was Daddy Hank had still been married to the positively vulpine Callie Archer. Then vulpine was Irene's new word of the day. One of the many self-improvement things Irene was doing to improve herself so she could rise up above the red, dirt poor country life she's grown up in. But she obviously wasn't satisfying him. Not like a real woman could. Not like I could, thought Irene, tossing her glorious mane of flaxen hair in vexation. There was no one in the world she hated more than Callie Archer, who used to be married to Daddy Hank before he met Irene and found out what true love really was. Daddy Hank had promised to leave his wife for Irene. He even started the divorce proceedings. But then he died so tragically in that tragic car accident, before he could change his will, before he could divorce Callie, before he could marry his dully Rennie Bean and make an honest woman out of her.
So, yeah, why does Irene know that?
Every time I have to say it, I'm kind of like. And then, to add insults to injury, to make matters worse, as if they could ever get any worse, the straw that broke the camel's back was when Callie turned around and married Bruce Lucent just a week after poor Daddy Hank died. Callie inherited everything, and Irene was left practically penniless. Callie even canceled the lease on that cute little Lexus coupe Daddy Hank had given Irene, a merciless, heartless, cruel witch. That is enough to make Daddy Hank turn over in his grave. If he had a grave, that was, but he didn't. Being cremated, after all. Callie was to buy
Well,
a
he still
plot
has
in
an urn. That kind of counts as a grave.
Since Callie was too cheap to buy a plot and casting and cement liner, she had him stuffed into the cheapest cardboard box the funeral home had, and then mailed the box to Irene. Postage due, the arrogant woman. What the fuck?
I don't understand.
Why did she freaking mailed she mailed the box with his corpse in it to her? It's horrifying.
Oh my
If only there was a way I could make her pay, Irene thought, fiercely fighting back the tears that welled up in her lovely china blue eyes. If only there was something I could take away from her. Bruce Lucent finished his part of the presentation, nodding and smiling at the applause. As his technical assistant took over explaining the technical parts of the software, Bruce put his hand on Callie's shoulder and remembered, back in the SecCon. Then he headed back out of the 42-seat private chef's room, which was just off the kitchen. It had beautiful art, high ceilings, and state-of-the-art technology available to rent, which is probably why Bruce Lucent chose it for a software presentation. And suddenly, as she had been struck by lightning, a light bulb went off over Irene's pretty head. Once more patting her glossy lips and tucking her Clinique Stay Today lipstick in the pocket of the cheap little Versace number she prayerfully picked up out of that morning, knowing it accentuated her voluptuous, perfect 96 body. Irene slid out of her chair and leaned close to Rory to confide. Just going to powder my nose, Roar. Order me the pot de chocolat served with the creme fraiche sorbet and the rolled sugar wafer cookie, will you? She had a feeling she'd be hungry when she got back. Oh, jeez.
Oh no! Fuck! No! God damn it! Not this fuckwad again.
Steven suffered and eyed this voluptuous young blonde as she left the room, her round ass looking like a juicy Georgia peach in the sexy little number she was wearing. Steven, a masseuse at Atlantis Polo Club, had an eye for the ladies, but he liked to bat for both teams. In fact, he had his eye on the steadily older guy she's been sitting with. Steven asked around and found out quite a bit about Roy Edwards, who was 60 but didn't look a day over 40. One was that the hard body was just as good without the clothes. No corset for Mr. Edwards. And the other was that Rory Edwards was loaded, rich, rolling in the dough, and unattached. The unattached part was one he was hoping to personally change, and hopefully by this afternoon, supper time maybe, or either this evening at the latest, he scored a ticket to the $200 a plate luncheon presentation by giving an extra special massage to the fat old Mrs. Couture. He never be able to watch the movie Deliverance again without thinking fondly on the moment. He's known there would be dozens of fat, rich pigeons at a do like this. No reason he couldn't pluck one. And Mr. Roy Edwards was the perfect pigeon. Steven had seen the way his eyes, a lovely chocolate brown behind his spectacles, kept roving his way. He might have a chubby for the luscious blonde, but put a bat in his hand and he nailed one out of the park. Steven rose, unconsciously checking his handsome visions in the mirror for errant flecks of microbasil. He had the crab cakes and made his way over to Roy Edwards. Mind if I sit down and chat for a moment, he asked, his pleasant baritone warm and inviting. He put out his hand and offered a manly squeeze, which Roy Edwards returned with equal fervor. My companion will return shortly, Edwards stammered. Steven slid his hand under the table, expertly flicking the snowy linen tablecloth over Edwards' lap to cover the fact his nimble fingers were even now sliding down the zipper of Edwards' expensive Ralph Lauren stain repellent slacks. Don't sweat it, handsome. he murmured with a throaty growl that made perspiration beads drop on Edward's surprised face. This won't take long.
What is this fucking chapter? It's like it's 3 different chapters in one. There's no connection between any of this.
No, you see, Irene is like, I'm gonna make Kelly pay by just doing her husband. And then the guy's like, now that my old flame Rory is like sitting there waiting for me, the masseuse's like, now it's my turn to get laid. Irene smoothed the skirt of her nasty little Versace number over her curvy hips, smiling a sweet smile to herself as she re-entered the 42-seat private dining room. She was a little out of breath, if truths were told. Her state-of-day lipstick hadn't quite held up to his advertised promise of lasting through everything, but otherwise, no one would have guessed that she just had moments before riding Bruce Lucent like a champion.
What?
Looking bronc rider at a Texas rodeo, his face buried between her firm, high breasts that bounced unfettered and free.
What the fuck? Well, presentation's over. I better go bone Bruce Lucent. Alright.
There was a young man singing in Irene's seat, but he jumped to his feet the moment he saw Irene, giving her a smile that showed off his perfect white teeth. He had most startlingly green eyes, like a cat's, an emerald color that showed off his golden tan and sculpted features. Irene's own china blue eyes strayed down to his crotch, noting with extra quickness that his dress left and was hung like a stallion. She licked her lips, smiling as she lifted her hungry eyes off his crotch. Surely she worked off enough calories with Bruce that she would have her 2 desserts after all. You never guess what I've been doing, Roar, Irene confided. Sure, the young man couldn't hear her. And I realized that he could indeed, and was hanging on every word. I just gave Bruce Lucent the ride of his life. Irene laughed merrily, her laugh like a dozen little tinkling bells, and tossed her magnificent mane of flaxen hair. I followed him into the men's room, she said in a purring voice. Caught him with his pants down, so to speak. Rory just blinked at her, his mouth opened a little. Irene laughed again, gaily, enjoying the effect she was having. This would certainly get him in the mood for what she had planned later this afternoon. I pretended I didn't know I was in the men's and got all flustered and excited, Irene said. So excited, my breast just popped out of the top of my Versace. There's these darn crisscross tops just don't hold anything in. Just as soon as he saw my bobbies. That's that pink well, Roar, he just about popped too. Irene's pretty face was flushed as she was excitedly recounted the tale of what had happened in the men's room. I said to him, "Ooh, Mr. President, I always wanted to try one of these big cigars. Can I just have a teeny little taste?" Roar, I thought his eyes were going to fall right out of his head as he was staring so hard that he couldn't say a word. Just kept making these funny little noises like a puppy on its mama's teeth. So I just went to my knees and went to work. Roy Evers groped in his pocket for his handkerchief and mopped his sweating face. It was rather violent red, Irene noticed, but she was having too much fun telling her story to bother asking if he was feeling all right. He pulled me to my feet, Irene said, her china blue eyes sparkling like the memory of how manly Bruce had been. And he picked me up and set me on the imported Italian marble countertop and pulled my panties down with his teeth. And oh, Roar, he pleasured me with his probing tongue and nimble fingers. Just when I thought I had reached the utmost peak of bliss, he thrust his throbbing member deep inside my hot little lovely my juicy love box and pounded me like a snorting stallion on a brooding mare. Well, except that the stallion would have had her doggy style. I guess you would have to say, taking her roughly and fully from behind.
Thank you for the specifications. Oh my god.
Or Bruce mounted me from the front until I shrieked so loudly and such unsuppressed abandon that he had to put his hand over my mouth to stifle my cries of ecstasy as he filled me with his steaming love juices. Oh, Roar, I never felt such bliss, such ecstasy, such rapture, such elation, such... Irene stopped, suddenly aware that Roy's eyes had stopped blinking. His hand clutching his handkerchief had fallen from his lap, pushing aside the tablecloth that had, until unfaithful had becoming the fact that his flight had been down. And his rather large and still triumphant member has fully exposed to his Ralph Lauren stain-free sags hadn't lived up to the reputation. Oh, dude. Jacket. Oh, dude. Roy Edwards, in fact, had stopped altogether. His heart, at least, strained to its very limit from Stephen Suffern's expert administrations, had been pushed beyond the very limits of human endurance by listening to Irene's spirit and passionate exposition of her washroom of conquest of software developer Bruceton. Irene's lovely china blue eyes filled with horror and flew to Stephen Suffern, who was standing stock still and frozen in utter shock behind him. Then she began to scream, loud and wrong, even louder, that she shrieked while being pleasured by Bruce Lucen. But this time, no one moved to put her hand over her glossy lips and stop her English cries. Like an undulating siren, claxoning on and on and on and on and on. She kept it up for a fully 23 piercing minutes until police arrived and a craggy officer finally slapped her to shut her the hell up. He freaking jacked it and died.
What a chapter! Oh my god!
So many twists and turns.
Yeah.
It started off crazy, went terribly,
Yeah,
then went hilarious again.
yeah, I think this is a good stopping point, don't you think? What a cliffhanger. Yeah, sex happened and the death by sex happened. Oh my god.
No, she didn't. No, she didn't fuck him to death. She was telling the dude about her sexcapades in the bathroom. And the guy was basically, it was so hot, he was actually jacking it, and he died.
He jacked to death because of her tales about banging Bruce Lucette in the bathroom. So yeah, this fight, I think I need another emote of the Grumpos Yammer, except just have somebody with fucking big ass boobs. Oh my god. So, yeah, thank you everyone for coming over to the stream. We're a little over halfway with the novel. Maybe we're just going to do the mother of all pushes and finish this the next time. Who knows for sure? Or maybe we're just going to be finished like Rory Steven or whatever his name is. So anyway, thank you everyone for coming along to this stream. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you Festimore for being alongside with me. Now let's see who's actually streaming. Alright, I see Killer MC is currently streaming, so alright. What better way to scream for 20 minutes at the thought of I don't know. I guess maybe you die from masturbation if you just jack it so long that you run out of semen.
No, he didn't become a desiccated corpse from jacking out all his body fluids. Like, he just had a heart attack.
Yeah. Oh my god. Imagine all the fun I will have this afternoon. Oh my god. Yep, ask your doctor if you're sexy enough to crank
it. Is you sexy enough to crank it?
Yeah.
Am I sexy enough to jack it, Doc? Please tell me. No, you're not. No.
Alright, so anyway, goodbye everybody. See you later.